Chapter 5:16. It was 100,000-year soul ring after all, so it took some time to absorb it. Tang San spent a full 3 hours before he successfully absorbed it. Seeing this, Lin Feng stood up and smiled. Xiao San, you can go back by yourself. I'm leaving. Okay. Tang San smiled. The setting sun forest was no longer too dangerous for him. Even if it was 100,000-year soul beast, Tang San wouldn't be afraid. Under such circumstances, he didn't need Lin Feng to protect him. Tang San didn't stay in the setting sun forest for long. After absorbing the soul ring, he quickly returned to Heaven Do City. Lin Feng continued to farm for experience after seeing Tang San leave. At this moment, in Heaven Do City, after more than half a month of promotion, the Soul Master Alliance finally announced that the 100,000-year soul ring could be customized. Of course, the delivery period was still very long. It had to be customized 3 years in advance. This was the time limit for outsiders. If it was an internal Soul Master of the Soul Master Alliance, the time limit would be 2 years. If there was a position, the time limit would be even shorter. The main reason for this was that Tang San and the others' current mission was still to cultivate and increase their strength. They didn't care too much about this soul ring. After all, among the 7 of them, only Tang San needed an extra soul ring. The others still had a God-bestowed soul ring that they hadn't used yet. The Soul Master Alliance's announcement made the entire Soul Master world extremely excited. It was shocking that a 100,000-year soul ring could be manufactured. Although they hadn't seen the real thing, there were examples of 1,000-year and 10,000-year soul rings. Coupled with the Soul Master Alliance's excellent reputation, everyone believed in this. In a tavern in the west of Heaven Do City, Gue Mei had a depressed expression. 3 years. It actually took 3 years to get a 100,000-year soul ring. It was too late. After all, according to Bibi Dong, they had to buy it as soon as possible. The current 3 years made Gue Mei feel a little uncomfortable. At the same time, he was also very shocked by the Soul Master Alliance's development speed. Heaven Do City had changed so much in just over a year, and the strength of Soul Masters had increased by a level. If they had another year, the Martial Soul Hall would have been destroyed. With that in mind, Gue Mei quickly left Heaven Do City and returned to Heaven Do City. After that, he didn't stop and went straight to the Pontiff's palace to find Bibi Dong. Your Majesty, the Soul Master Alliance has released a 100,000-year man-made soul ring. However, it needs to be customized, and the delivery time is 3 years later. 3 years? Custom-made? Bibi Dong was stunned. In the Dolo world, buying and selling things, apart from blacksmiths, there was no concept of customization. So when he heard Ghost Charm's words, Bibi Dong was a little confused. Could this news be a cover? Bibi Dong continued to ask. I don't think so, Gue Mei replied. Those 100-year, 1,000-year, and 10,000-year soul rings have all been successfully absorbed. I saw it with my own eyes, so it should be true. Oh right, the Soul Master Alliance also said that they will soon put up a sample of a 100,000-year soul ring for people to see. Whether it's true or not, we'll know when the time comes. Sample? After hearing this, Bibi Dong's heart skipped a beat. Where will it be displayed? A 100,000-year soul ring was very precious. After all, soul beasts of that level usually hid in the depths of the forest. Furthermore, they were all very strong and liked to form groups. Bibi Dong had tried to capture these 100,000-year soul beasts several times, but in the end, she only succeeded a few times. Therefore, she was very covetous of this 100,000-year soul ring. If there was a chance, she wanted to snatch it. At the Soul Master Alliance's headquarters, there will be many powerful titled Dolois guards. Gue Mei guessed Bibi Dong's thoughts. Bibi Dong nodded. With such tight security, she dispelled her previous thoughts and fell silent. At this moment, Gue Mei said, Your Majesty, I've investigated Heaven Do City more than 10 times. It's been about a year. During this time, I've clearly sensed how fast the Soul Master Alliance has developed. In this year, our Martial Spirit Hall hasn't done anything except strengthen our power in the Star Luo Empire. The Heaven Do Empire has completely given up. This isn't a good sign. Furthermore, I estimate that if the Soul Master Alliance is given another year, our Martial Spirit City will be breached. Gue Mei said with a worried expression. In fact, his worries weren't unfounded. He even underestimated the danger of the Martial Spirit Alliance. Right now, Lin Feng was a ticking time bomb with an unknown time limit. If he was lucky enough to encounter the deep-sea demonic whale king one day, he might just lead his people straight to Martial Spirit City. Under such circumstances, Bibi Dong and the others felt like there was a sharp sword hanging over their heads. They didn't know when it would come down. Elder Gui, don't worry. The Soul Master Alliance is nothing. I'll be able to break through to rank 100 in half a year at most, Bibi Dong said with incomparable confidence. She had some understanding of the Soul Master Alliance's situation. They wouldn't attack Martial Spirit City in a year, so Bibi Dong had plenty of time to break through. Speaking of which, Bibi Dong had to thank Lin Feng for comprehending a lot during the fight. That was why she was confident of stepping into rank 100 in half a year. Rank 100? Your Majesty, are you going to become a god in half a year? Gue Mei's face was full of shock. His voice was trembling. Rank 100 was a very distant level. Now that he heard Bibi Dong's confidence, was it really going to appear in the Martial Spirit Hall? In any case, in the history of the Martial Spirit Hall, a true god had never appeared. If Bibi Dong could really become a god, it would be a first. Do you think I'll lie to you? Bibi Dong laughed. Elder Gui, spread this news to the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Hall. We just need to wait for another half a year, and the Martial Spirit Hall will sweep the entire continent again. And this time, the Martial Spirit Hall won't be bullied like before. The continent has been separated for too long, and it needs to be unified again. As he spoke, Bibi Dong's ambition was clear as day. As for why she asked Gue Mei to spread these words, the main reason was to stabilize the morale of the army. In the past year, because of the rapid development of the Soul Master Alliance and the continuous lockdown of Martial Spirit City, some of the Soul Masters on their side had become impetuous. Some even had the idea of leaving the Martial Spirit Hall. After all, Martial Spirit City was too oppressive now. Under such circumstances, Bibi Dong didn't want the powerhouses in the Martial Spirit Hall to be lax, so she had to announce this news. Yes, I'll definitely inform everyone. Gue Mei cupped his hands excitedly. Bibi Dong was going to become a god in half a year. This news was really exciting. In addition, Bibi Dong also said that the glory of the Martial Spirit Hall would shine in every corner of the continent, and there was also the matter of unifying the continent. It was too exciting. The reason why Gue Mei and Yu Guan supported Bibi Dong back then was because Bibi Dong had the ambition to unify the entire continent. Now that this matter would be realized in half a year, they were really looking forward to it. They believed that if the others knew, they would be very excited too. With this kind of expectation, Gue Mei quickly left the pontiff's palace to inform the others. On Bibi Dong's side, after listening to Gue Mei's report, she had a better understanding of the situation of the Soul Master Alliance. After that, she didn't stay in the pontiff's palace for long. She quickly returned to the study and continued to cultivate. A week later, in the southwest corner of the Heaven Do Empire, within the Haagen-Dazs Kingdom, Lin Feng was flying in the direction of the sea. During this period, besides wandering around the continent, Lin Feng spent some time in the sea every day looking for the deep-sea devil whale king. Speaking of this soul beast, Lin Feng felt a little uncomfortable because he guessed that he would only be able to find it if he brought Tang San with him. However, after trying for a few days, Lin Feng still couldn't find it. Therefore, Lin Feng still held a grudge against this deep-sea devil whale king for wasting so much of his time. However, as he was flying, Lin Feng suddenly felt that he was locked on by a special aura. It gave him the feeling of being in the city of massacre. It was full of killing intent and very strange soul power fluctuations. Lin Feng immediately spread out his spiritual power and found the source of the aura. The King of Massacre? That's right, in a valley below, the King of Massacre was staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was a little surprised by this. Not long ago, he went to the city of Massacre because that place seemed to be the inheritance ground of two gods. Lin Feng wanted to see if he could take advantage of it. But after he went there, he didn't find anything. At the same time, he found that all the soul masters in the city of Massacre were dead. As for the King of Massacre, there was no trace of him. Lin Feng remembered that this King of Massacre seemed to be Tang San's great-grandfather. However, Lin Feng didn't have a deep impression of him and didn't care much about him. He didn't expect that he would find him today. Now, not only was the King of Massacre poisoned, but he was also in a state of delirium like before. In this regard, Lin Feng didn't have any other opinions. The relationship between this great-grandfather and Tang San wasn't much. After all, he was his great-grandfather. There were hundreds of years in between. Tang San hadn't even seen him, so there wasn't much familial affection. In this case, Lin Feng looked at this King of Massacre as if he was looking at an experienced baby. Stupid, rich, strong, isn't this an experienced baby? Just as he was thinking about this, the King of Massacre suddenly jumped up and rushed toward Lin Feng. Little bug, you actually dare to poison me. Hurry up and give me the antidote, or I'll kill you immediately. The King of Massacre's hoarse voice sounded, threatening Lin Feng. In fact, he had never seen Lin Feng before and didn't remember his aura. However, Lin Feng had the Massacre domain, which was the main reason he found Lin Feng. Those who had the Massacre domain were all killing gods. In these years, the King of Massacre knew who had obtained the Massacre domain. Lin Feng's aura was new and he had never seen it before. It could only be one of the new killing god. It must be these people who destroyed the city of Massacre. Therefore, at this moment, he was full of hatred for Lin Feng. Come and kill me. Lin Feng chuckled. The King of Massacre? Although Tang Chen was controlled to become the King of Massacre and was delirious, this delirious state referred to himself. Now that he was controlled, other than being a little crazy, he still had basic common sense. Shouldn't an ordinary person be afraid when threatened to be killed? Why was Lin Feng begging him to kill him? The King of Massacre was stunned. However, before he could think of anything, Lin Feng smiled, revealing his white teeth. Experience baby, eat my fist. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng's figure instantly appeared in front of the King of Massacre, then he threw out a punch. What a fast punch! The King of Massacre noticed this punch, but he didn't have time to react at all. Boom! A punch landed on his face, and the King of Massacre was sent flying. Damn it, you've angered me. I'm going to. After being hit, the King of Massacre still wanted to say something to Lin Feng. However, before he could finish his sentence, Lin Feng threw another punch at him. The difference in strength between the two was too big. If the King of Massacre had regained his consciousness and unleashed his full strength, he might have been able to exchange 1 or 2 blows with Lin Feng. After all, this was a face-to-face battle, not a sneak attack. No matter how powerful Su Ping was, they could still exchange blows. However, at the moment, the King of Massacre was delirious, and he was poisoned. He couldn't unleash his full strength. Lin Feng could easily beat him up. Punch after punch, the King of Massacre was dumbfounded. How could this guy be so powerful? He was a rank 99 titled Battle Pet Warrior, Dolu. How could he not be able to react to the King of Massacre's punches? This guy was horrifying. At this moment, the King of Massacre wanted to use his own strength to control Lin Feng, who had the realm of Massacre. However, the King of Massacre's soul energy was of no use to Lin Feng. As soon as the King of Massacre's soul energy appeared, Lin Feng destroyed the King of Massacre's soul energy. In the face of absolute strength, all tricks were useless. Lin Feng didn't have time to listen to what the King of Massacre had to say. He was focused on beating the King of Massacre until the latter couldn't even tell which way was north. Half an hour later. Ding! After a sweaty battle, the host knocked out Tang Chen, a rank 99 titled battle pet warrior, Dolu. Your combat experience has increased. You have gained 518624815 experience points. Over 500 million experience points. No wonder he was an experience baby. Lin Feng had not wasted half an hour beating him up. Of course, Lin Feng wasn't going to let this guy off the hook. Of course, he had to make good use of this experience baby. With that thought in mind, Lin Feng sealed off all of the King of Massacre's soul energy. Then, he used the ruler to create a cell in a cave. Although it was called a cell, it was actually quite spacious. It was big enough for a person to move around normally. Lin Feng left some daily necessities and food in there. Finally, he considerately opened a skylight so that the King of Massacre could live in it. At this point, the King of Massacre had been trapped by Lin Feng. Recently, Lin Feng had been preparing to take advantage of the King of Massacre. When he ran out of experience points, he would send the King of Massacre to the clear sky sect. Thinking of this, Lin Feng didn't care much about it. He quickly left the cave and flew toward the sea. The deep-sea monster whale king was waiting for him. Chapter 5:17. The deep-sea devil whale king was still hidden very deeply. Lin Feng searched for a long time, but he couldn't find any traces of it. Recently, Lin Feng even began to suspect whether there was a deep-sea devil whale king in that sea area. It had been more than a year since he had found it, but he still hadn't found it. He was too unlucky. Thinking about it, Lin Feng began to expand the search area. At the same time, he used the principle of his detection soul skill to make the 1000G ruler into many detectors and threw them on the surface of the sea. However, these detectors also had limitations. In other words, Lin Feng could only give feedback when he was nearby. If he was too far away, there was no way to give feedback. In addition, the range of the detectors wasn't very large, so Lin Feng still hadn't found the deep-sea devil whale king. After spending 3 days, Lin Feng set up countless detectors on the sea. After that, he specially made a trip back to the continent, pulled the King of Massacre over, and locked it up on an island. Lin Feng had decided to make the sea his main battlefield. After all, the soul beasts in the sea were quite old, and they were wandering around nearby. With the King of Massacre around, his speed of gaining experience wouldn't be too slow. Moreover, he could also go to the continent from time to time to find those powerhouses to exchange pointers and plunder experience. Just like this, 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng's experience had now broken through 10 billion. He returned to Heavendo City and broke through the first soul ring on the 1000G ruler to 1 million years. This soul ring was obtained when he killed the Blood Shadow Shark King. At that time, it was more than 160,000 years old. Now, it only took him a little more than 9.3 billion experience to successfully break through. As for the overflowing soul power, Lin Feng naturally let Daming absorb it alone. However, this time, he didn't break through 400,000 years, but reached 399,999 years. This could be considered a small limit. If he cultivated for another 1 or 2 years, or if he waited for Lin Feng to break through again, he would be able to break through as well. However, Lin Feng also knew that it would be very difficult for Daming to break through 1,000,000 years. It could even be said that it was impossible. It was extremely difficult for ordinary soul masters to break through to rank 100. They would be stopped by the power of laws, and they would have to defy the heavens and change their fate. Lin Feng had established the Soul Master Alliance, and he was also promoting new knowledge and systems. This was a heaven-defying change of fate, which was why he was so confident in becoming a god. As for Daming, if he wanted to become a god, other than changing his own fate, he also needed to change his fate as a soul beast. Furthermore, this type of fate change was even more difficult than the previous type. It could even be said that it would increase exponentially. If the difficulty for a rank 100 soul master to become a god was 100, then the difficulty for Daming to become a god was 1000. Therefore, in this situation, even Lin Feng had no way to make Daming condense a divine position. Of course, if Lin Feng could go to the god realm, he might be able to find a way. However, at that time, it wouldn't be his problem anymore. It would be Xiao Wu's problem. This was because Daming and Erming weren't too tied down to Lin Feng. Lin Feng could already take care of Little Moon and Xiaoying. As for Daming and Erming, he could only help them if he could. In the end, if he couldn't manage them, Lin Feng wouldn't deliberately care about them. Thinking of this, Lin Feng didn't continue to stay in Heavendo City. Instead, he circled around the main road and finally arrived in front of the city gate of Martial Spirit City. Bibi Dong, Qian Daolu, your Martial Spirit Palace should disband as soon as possible. As long as you surrender now, I can spare your lives. Lin Feng shouted, his voice spreading throughout the entire Martial Spirit City. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since he came to Martial Spirit City. This time, Lin Feng came to farm for experience. But then again, for more than a year, Bibi Dong hadn't done anything at all. This actually surprised Lin Feng a little. However, from the beginning to the end, there were people watching over Martial Spirit City, and nothing happened. This was very strange. In Lin Feng's impression, Bibi Dong was a smart person. He shouldn't be waiting for death. Therefore, one of the reasons he came today was to farm experience, but the other reason was that Lin Feng wanted to test Bibi Dong's background. Of course, if the other party really opened the door and surrendered, Lin Feng would still keep his promise and spare their lives. However, just as he finished speaking, more than 10 figures flew out of the Martial Spirit Mountain. The two people at the front were Bibi Dong and Qian Daolu. Everyone in the Martial Spirit City was on high alert. The moment they heard the voice, they all appeared. Bibi Dong's face was extremely calm, but inside, she was laughing like a blooming flower. She was about to break through to level 100. Her original estimate was half a year, but if she fought with Thanos again, the time would be shortened significantly. It was even possible for her to break through to level 100 within a month. Under these circumstances, it would be strange if Bibi Dong wasn't happy. When she saw the white-clothed and white-masked Thanos, she even felt a trace of affection. She immediately replied, "You want our Martial Spirit Hall to surrender? That's an insult to us. Since you dare to come alone today, it'll be your death." With that, Bibi Dong possessed her martial soul and even activated her martial soul true body. She directly charged at Lin Feng. She couldn't wait to fight with Lin Feng. At this moment, her aura was at its peak. Spiderwebs covered the entire area in front of Martial Spirit City, blotting out the sun. This quick attack, this powerful aura, and this firm belief not only stunned Lin Feng, even Thousand Daos Lu, who was at the side, was stunned. Normally, shouldn't the two sides talk for a while? Why did she suddenly attack? This was too sudden. Although he was a little surprised, Lin Feng didn't think too much about it. Soon, he faced her. This was EXP. Since Bibi Dong wanted to fight, he would fight with her. As for the matter of probing, he could talk about it after the fight. Lin Feng could even take advantage of this time when Bibi Dong and the others didn't know his strength to suppress her in advance. With that thought, Lin Feng faced the huge net and quickly retreated, distancing himself from Martial Spirit City. Bibi Dong didn't care about this at all. She directly chased after him. At this moment, there was only one thought in her mind, and that was to fight with Lin Feng. On the other hand, Qian Daolu frowned slightly. He also summoned his martial soul and followed after her. Actually, according to what Bibi Dong said earlier, their martial spirit city had to continue to defend. Even if they were to face the attack of the Soul Master Alliance, they had to strictly defend. But now, Bibi Dong actually took the lead to break the rules and follow them out of the city. This wasn't a good sign. However, looking at the situation, it would be difficult for Bibi Dong to stop for a while. In order to avoid any accidents, Qian Daolu also followed. At the same time, he shouted to the others, "You guys guard Martial Spirit City well." Lin Feng came alone to challenge them and even lured them out. Qian Daolu was still afraid of a sneak attack from the Soul Master Alliance. If not for the fact that Thanos was too strong and that Bibi Dong couldn't handle him alone, Qian Daolu wouldn't have gone out. Protecting the angel's inheritance in the Elder Hall was his main responsibility. Yes, great consecrator. Everyone nodded and was on high alert. At this moment, at the city gate, Lin Feng also raised his strength to his previous level so that Bibi Dong would lower her guard. At rank 99, with the help of his god power, Lin Feng's strength was actually not much different from the three-peak Dolu. It wasn't to the point where he could crush them. If he wanted to achieve a breakthrough, he could only catch them off guard. Just like when he obtained his second million-year soul ring, when he used spatial cut, if it weren't for Bibi Dong's quick rescue, Qian Daolu would have been killed by him. At the very least, he would be seriously injured and on the verge of death. If Lin Feng chased him again, Qian Daolu would still die. So now it was important to catch them off guard. But as they fought, Lin Feng found that something was wrong. The aura on Bibi Dong's body was actually getting stronger and stronger. This was very wrong. Lin Feng was surprised to find that while he was earning experience points from Bibi Dong, the other party was also gaining experience from fighting with him. Especially his use of soul power and the use of various soul skills, these were all being rapidly learned by Bibi Dong. Lin Feng took a closer look and saw that in Bibi Dong's eyes, there was actually a faint blood-red light flickering. His spiritual power shook and soon sensed a familiar aura. It was the Rakshasa god, and Bibi Dong had obtained an extremely special ability to borrow the eyes of the Rakshasa god to spy on him. In the past, Lin Feng's strength wasn't as strong as it was now, and his spiritual power wasn't so strong either. When they fought, he actually didn't notice it. And in the previous few battles, on the surface, Lin Feng had a huge advantage and obtained billions of experience points. Now it seems that the clown is actually me. Bibi Dong had gained much more from it than him. Now that Bibi Dong's aura and strength were still increasing, she might become a god at level 100. Thinking about it, Lin Feng didn't have the slightest intention to continue fighting and teleported to the distant sky. Then, he didn't leave, but stared quietly at Bibi Dong without saying a word. He was waiting for Bibi Dong's reaction, whether she would chase after him. If she did, he would directly teleport into Martial Spirit City and kill a few titled Dolua that he didn't like previously. If Bibi Dong didn't chase after him, he would threaten her and then leave. At this moment, Thousand Streams was watching from the side. His martial soul had the ability to recover, and Lin Feng wasn't confident that he could instantly subdue or kill Bibi Dong under his protection. Under such circumstances, Lin Feng wasn't prepared to fight with Bibi Dong. At this moment, Bibi Dong was eager to fight. After seeing Lin Feng teleport away, she immediately wanted to chase after him. But soon, she realized that this was probably a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. In addition, behind her, Thousand Streams immediately shouted, "Don't chase him anymore." Hearing this, Bibi Dong also suppressed the desire to fight in her heart and returned to the city wall of Martial Spirit City. After all, the Martial Spirit Palace was the foundation of her future Martial Spirit Empire, so Bibi Dong couldn't ignore it. On Lin Feng's side, seeing that Thousand Streams and Bibi Dong had returned to the city wall, he immediately smiled and said, "Why don't you chase after me? Are you afraid? Bibi Dong, as the Pope of the Martial Spirit Palace, are you so timid?" What's the use of a sharp tongue? Bibi Dong said loudly. You want to fool us with a small trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain? How can it be so easy? But you, running away as soon as the fight started and saying that I'm timid, what a joke. I'm just a nobody, I can run away if I want to. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Since Bibi Dong wanted to talk now, Lin Feng also had the intention to continue probing. Who doesn't know the Marvel family on the continent? Now they are even more famous than me, the Pope. Why don't you fight with me again? Bibi Dong also wanted to continue fighting with Lin Feng. Hearing this, the corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly. The fish took the bait. He smiled and said, Bibi Dong, you also know that you are the Pope of the Martial Spirit Palace. As the Pope, because of the rise of the Soul Master Alliance, you have holed up in the Martial Spirit City and wasted several years. This is a big joke. The face of your Martial Spirit Palace has been lost by you. In fact, after the battle just now, Lin Feng could roughly guess that the main reason why Bibi Dong had holed up for so long was to cultivate and improve her strength. But Lin Feng felt that she should have other thoughts. There was also Thousand Streams. He had not made any moves and did not even care about his granddaughter, Xueqinghe. This was a bit abnormal. In fact, all of this was Lin Feng thinking too much and worrying too much. For Thousand Streams and Xueqinghe, this situation was actually very normal. Xueqinghe was a smart person. Thousand Streams had actually sent a message to him to tell him to return to the Martial Spirit City. However, Xueqinghe's strength had increased very quickly with Lin Feng and the others. In addition, he had joined the Marvel family and had a bright future. Without knowing that he was going to inherit the angel deity position, why would he return? As for Bibi Dong, he had not come out for so long purely because he wanted to improve his strength. Other than that, at most, he had strengthened the rule of the Martial Spirit Palace in the Star Luo Empire. Now, with an order, the Star Luo Empire could start a war with the Heaven Do Empire. Although this matter was important, with the current situation of the Soul Master Alliance, this kind of war was nothing to them. In addition, with Dai Mubai around, this kind of war would end very quickly even if it started. Therefore, under such circumstances, Lin Feng's probing was ultimately futile. Just like that, one side probed and wanted to know the Martial Spirit Palace's backup plan, while the other side provoked and wanted Lin Feng to fight with her again. 3 minutes later, both of them understood each other's intentions. In the end, Lin Feng was too lazy to waste time and ended the conversation. It was useless to continue talking. Neither of them was willing to say anything. It was a waste of time. After a few threats, Lin Feng quickly left the Martial Spirit City and ran towards the sea. While he was on his way, an image suddenly appeared in his mind. It was Hu Laina. That girl was standing on the city wall, quietly looking into the distance. This was what Lin Feng saw when he arrived at the Martial Spirit City. However, his mind was filled with how to investigate Bibi Dong's background, so he didn't pay much attention to it. But now that he thought about it, was Hu Laina waiting for someone? Who was she waiting for? Him? If that was the case, this girl's affection was quite heartbreaking. Chapter 518. Seeing Thanos retreat, everyone in Martial Spirit City heaved a sigh of relief. That pressure was too strong. Not only were they afraid of Thanos, but they were also afraid that a group of people would suddenly rush out from the surrounding forest. After all, the strength of the Soul Master Alliance was also extremely strong. If Thanos brought all the powerhouses to attack Martial Spirit City, their Martial Spirit Hall might be destroyed today, so they were incomparably nervous just now. Everyone, return to your posts. Increase the patrols in the next few days. Bibi Dong said to everyone. With that, she quickly returned to the Pontiff's palace and entered a state of meditation. Although the fight with Lin Feng didn't last long, she still had some insight. Now that she quickly recalled and comprehended, she should be able to shorten the time by 1 or 2 months. Just like that, Bibi Dong quickly entered a state of meditation to reflect on the battle just now. Outside, in order to guard against another attack from Thanos, the others were all on full alert, patrolling the surroundings of Martial Spirit City. Thousand Daos Flo returned to the Elder's palace to continue guarding his angel inheritance. At this moment, he thought of his granddaughter, Qian Renxue. The world was changing too fast. The Soul Master Alliance was changing day by day. Even man-made soul rings had been created. Although Bibi Dong was confident of breaking through to rank 100 in half a year, it would be very turbulent during this time. Thousand Daos Flo was a little worried about Qian Renxue and wanted her to come here to accept the angel inheritance. However, Thousand Daos Flo could only think about it. Because of his special martial soul, Ghost could easily hide in Heaven Do City and was very difficult to be discovered. However, if Thousand Daos Flo went in, the probability of being discovered was much higher. Moreover, Heaven Do City was the headquarters of the Soul Master Alliance. If he was discovered there and Thanos happened to be next to him, he would be dead. Therefore, Thousand Daos Flo didn't dare to personally bring her back. He didn't have the guts. As for letting Ghost pass the message, this method was possible, but Qian Renxue didn't want to come back at all. Thousand Daos Flo wouldn't tell Ghost about the godhood position, so things were a little awkward now. Sigh. I'll take it one step at a time. If it really comes to a critical moment, I can't care so much. As the guardian of the angel deity position, Thousand Streams actually had a backup plan, which was to hide the inheritance. The entire inheritance would enter a special space, just like the sea god mountain that was enveloped by the light of the sea god. At that time, Qian Daolu would bring Qian Renxue inside and any soul master would be suppressed. At the same time, their strength would be increased. In other words, they were basically invincible inside. Of course, there was a price to pay for this. It would consume a lot of the angel's divine power and might even be punished by the angel god. But when it came to that kind of critical moment, the Thousand Streams couldn't care less. Speaking of which, soul masters who were guardians of godhood were all very pitiful. This was because when the true successor appeared, they would be sacrificed and used as stepping stones for the successor to condense the divine throne. This was extremely cruel to them. From Lin Feng's point of view, this kind of inheritance was filled with blood. Even if one succeeded in becoming a god in the end, their achievements would be limited. Only by completely relying on oneself to condense a deity position and break the rules would one have a bright future. Of course, this had nothing to do with Lin Feng now. After leaving the Martial Spirit City, Lin Feng went straight to the sea. After finding Tang Chen to gain experience, he began his journey of violently beating up the sea spirit beast. At the same time, in a small courtyard in the Martial Spirit City, Hulaina did not cultivate as usual. Instead, she looked at the ground in a slight daze. Whenever she thought of something, Thanos's figure would appear. For some reason, she felt that Thanos was somewhat familiar and gave her a sense of closeness. Especially his eyes and figure, they felt very similar to Yong-En. But that was Thanos, the head of the Marvel family, the peak of rank 99, Doloa. How could he be Yong-En? No matter how she thought about it, she did not dare to believe it. But her sixth sense told her that Thanos really had a bit of familiarity. What if? What if it was really him? Or, what if Yong-En was Thanos's son? Hulaina heard from others that Thanos's son was called Lin Feng. During the National Youth Soul Master Tournament, he came to the Martial Spirit City. But he was not a member. At that time, Hulaina's focus was not on him at all. After that, there was a chaotic battle. Hulaina's impression of Lin Feng was very vague. It was because of this that Hulaina guessed that Lin Feng was Yong-En. It was reasonable. But what was the use of guessing? According to the current situation, the Soul Master Alliance and the Martial Spirit Palace would eventually fight. She was just a little soul sage. Even if she was Bibi Dong's disciple, she could not change anything. No, she had to become stronger quickly. At least, she had to reach the level of Soul Dolor. At that time, she would have some say. Thinking, Hulaina quickly came back to her senses and continued to cultivate. She had to improve her strength quickly and reach the level of Soul Dolor as soon as possible. If Lin Feng knew what Hulaina was thinking, he would probably be amazed by this girl's lucky hit. He, Lin Feng, and Yong'an had nothing to do with each other. She could even guess this. It had to be said that a woman's sixth sense was really terrifying. Of course, these were all small matters. Currently, Lin Feng's focus was on plundering experience points and finding the deep-sea demon Whale King. After the previous deterrence of the martial spirit city, there should not be any problems in the short term. Just like this, Lin Feng plundered experience points from Tangchen every day. He also went to the sea to hunt. Every few days, he would find time to go back to the continent to plunder. His days were relatively leisurely, and his experience points were increasing rapidly. A month's time passed quickly. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul. 1000 Trick Ruler, Immeasurable Flower Soul Power. Rank 90,000 Trick Ruler Soul Ring. Blood Shadow Shark King, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Space Shatter God Bestowed Soul Ring, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Sharp God Bestowed Soul Ring, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Paralysis God Bestowed Soul Ring, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Life Absorption Special Soul Skill. Avatar Immeasurable Flower Soul Ring. Snowy Lotus, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Life. Bloom Ghosthead Stalking Spider, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Shadow Bind Armor Giant Bear, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Armored Demonic Bear Transformation Raging Flame Devil Monkey, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Raging Sea of Flames Nether Civet, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Nether Body Lightning Falcon, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Thunderbolt Strength Wind Dragon, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Martial Soul True Body Chinkuan Blood Shadow Beast, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill. Teleport can also change position with Avatar Soul Bone. Wind Dragon Left Leg Bone, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill 1. Hathar Soul Skill 2. Wind Invisibility Chinkuan Blood Shadow Beast Skull, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill 1. Space Imprisonment Soul Skill 2. Blood Fiend Blood Shadow Shark King Right Leg Bone, 165,243 years. Plus, Soul Skill 1. Space Shuttle Soul Skill 2. Berserk Sharp Claw Demon Ape Left Arm Bone, 1,000,000 years. Plus, Soul Skill 1. Space Splitting Slash Soul Skill 2, 8. Roar Experience Points. 9234172678. If he focused on plundering experience points, the growth rate was still very impressive. Coupled with Tangchen, this experience baby, he quickly reached more than 9 billion experience points. However, at this time, the experience points that Tangchen gave Lin Feng were rapidly decreasing. It was less than 5 million, and he was almost done plundering. It was time to send him to the Clear Sky Sect. With that thought, Lin Feng directly knocked Tangchen out with a punch, then poured his soul power and spiritual power into his body and began to strip away the Rakshasa god's divine power. This was the power of a god, and Lin Feng was able to strip it away. This ability was actually considered breaking the rules. However, strictly speaking, this was not considered breaking the rules, because Lin Feng relied on the power of the system. As for the system, it was unknown whether it was because his martial soul had not evolved, or because there were limitations, but his strength was not really strengthened to the god level. In this way, Lin Feng's soul power was between divine power and soul power, and had some of the characteristics of divine power. Therefore, under such circumstances, he was able to isolate the divine power of the sea god affinity and extract the Rakshasa god's divine power. After spending about an hour, Lin Feng extracted the divine power in Tangchen's body. In the original work, Tang Chen woke up because he saw the sea god's trident in Tang San's hands, and then his inner conscience was awakened, and he finally recovered. Now, after the previous beating, Tang Chen was actually showing signs of waking up. Now that Lin Feng had extracted the Rakshasa divine power in his body that affected his mind, he should be able to recover when Tang Chen woke up. At this moment, Lin Feng grabbed Tang Chen and flew in the direction of the Clear Sky sect's new mountain gate. Not long after, about half an hour, Lin Feng arrived in front of the Clear Sky sect's gate. As he flew over without any concealment, he was quickly discovered, and a loud shout came from the sect. "Who dares to barge into the Clear Sky sect?" As the voice sounded, a few people flew out from the Clear Sky sect. They were the elders of the Clear Sky sect, and Tang Xiao was naturally among them. As Lin Feng was flying very quickly, they thought that someone was attacking them. Very soon, Tang Xiao saw Lin Feng, and immediately put on a smile. "So it's you, Deacon Lin. Please come in." Ever since the Clear Sky sect was subdued by the Marvel family, they worked diligently in the Soul Master Alliance, and were also very respectful to Lin Feng and the others. After all, the people of the Clear Sky sect were very straightforward, and wouldn't beat around the bush. If they wanted to abandon the 4 affiliated sects, they would abandon them, and if they wanted to subdue them, they wouldn't hesitate at all. There's no need for that. I'm here today to send someone over. As he spoke, Lin Feng waved his hand, and the unconscious Tang Chen was thrown to Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao subconsciously caught him, and asked curiously, "Deacon Lin, who is this?" "His name is Tang Chen. He should be your grandfather," Lin Feng said plainly. In fact, Tang Chen was considered a super genius in terms of talent. He didn't receive any god's inheritance, and only used his own strength to reach rank 99 in 100 years. He was even faster than the sea god back then. With such a cultivation speed and strong comprehension, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the best in the Dolua continent. If the Rakshasa god's divine power hadn't invaded his body, Tang Chen might have been able to form his own godly seat. "What? Tang Chen?" Tang Xiao opened his mouth wide in shock. Behind him, the faces of the elders, who were originally slightly confused, changed instantly. "Is it really sect leader Tang?" Tang Chen was the previous sect leader of the Clear Sky sect, and he was Tang Xiao's grandfather. After Tang Chen left the Clear Sky sect, there had been no news of him. They all thought that Tang Chen was dead, and they didn't expect him to suddenly appear today. As he spoke, Tang Xiao had already turned Tang Chen over, and they saw his face clearly. "It really is sect leader Tang," the elders exclaimed. Although a few decades had passed, Tang Chen's appearance didn't seem to have aged at all, and they recognized him immediately. "Deacon Lin, what happened to sect leader Tang? Why did you send him over?" Tang Xiao asked Lin Feng. "I met him on the way, so I sent him over." Lin Feng didn't intend to spend too much time, so he continued, "All right, since you've sent him over, I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." After speaking, Lin Feng didn't give anyone a chance to react, and he disappeared in a flash. Tang Xiao didn't even have time to thank Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't care about what would happen to Tang Chen after he returned to the Clear Sky sect, and he couldn't be bothered to care about it. However, if Tang Chen joined the Soul Master Alliance in the future, Lin Feng still had to take care of it. As he thought about it, he gave Tang San a call and told him about Tang Chen, and asked him to make the necessary arrangements. Tang San was also a little shocked and confused by this news. His great-grandfather, Tang Chen, who had been missing for a few decades, had actually appeared, and it was so unexpected. After hearing the news, Tang San immediately told Tang Hao, and the latter was also confused. After that, he pulled Tang San and quickly rushed to the Clear Sky sect. They wanted to see Tang Chen. According to Tang Hao's thoughts, of course, he had to acknowledge this ancestor. He would also drag Tang San along to acknowledge him. However, after being trained by Lin Feng for a long time, Tang San already had his own ideas. It shouldn't be a problem for him to acknowledge this great-grandfather, but it was unlikely that he would listen to orders or do anything. Lin Feng wasn't very concerned about this. His experience points were about to reach 10 billion. Right now, he only wanted to fight in the wild at sea, and then break through to a million-year soul ring. Bibi Dong's situation had stimulated Lin Feng, and he was a little more nervous. Hence, his need for experience points increased greatly. Just like that, there was a slight change in the Clear Sky sect because of Tang Chen's appearance. Tang San and the others returned to the sect, and the group was very excited. Not long after, the Clear Sky sect invited the various powers of the Soul Master Alliance to a banquet to announce Tang Chen's return. The various powerhouses and leaders were also very happy about this. After all, this was a rank 99 titled Soul Master, Dolu. Furthermore, it wouldn't be long before he joined the Soul Master Alliance, and their alliance's strength would increase greatly. Chapter 519. As the news of Tang Chen's appearance spread throughout the Heaven Do Empire, the entire Martial Spirit Alliance cheered. On the other hand, the atmosphere in Martial Spirit City became tense again because of Tang Chen's appearance. Even Bibi Dong was a little confused and couldn't cultivate in peace. After all, Tang Chen was a top soul master who wasn't weaker than Thousand Dao Lu. If he came with Thanos and a group of titled soul masters, Doluo, the Martial Spirit Hall would be in danger. Therefore, Bibi Dong strengthened the defense of Martial Spirit City and began to prepare a retreat plan at the same time. She wanted to set up a second line of defense in the Star Luo Empire. If Martial Spirit City was about to fall, they would immediately retreat. At most, she would take everyone to the depths of the forest and hide. When she reached level 100 and became a god, she would come out again. This was actually a very safe method. The reason why Bibi Dong didn't do it now was purely to save face. After all, she was the Pope of the Martial Spirit Hall. If she escaped this time, even if she unified the continent in the future, the world would talk about it. Unless it was a last resort, Bibi Dong wouldn't do this. Just like that, the Martial Spirit Hall moved again. He couldn't care less about Thousand Dao Lu. Tang Chen, that old guy, had already come out. He had to bring his granddaughter back. Otherwise, when the battle started, he wouldn't have time to care about Qianrenxue. Just like that, Thousand Dao Lu quietly left Martial Spirit City and went straight to Heaven Do City. Putting aside Doluo's turbulent situation on the continent, Lin Feng was farming experience points as usual. Today, after knocking out an 80,000-year soul beast with one punch, Lin Feng's experience points exceeded 10 billion again. He was thinking of returning to Heaven Do City at night. However, at this moment, he suddenly sensed movement in the northeast. It was the deep-sea demon whales, and there were many of them. One had to know that deep-sea demon whales generally liked to move alone. Usually, there would only be 2 or 3 of them. In more than a year, Lin Feng had seen deep-sea demon whales more than a dozen times. However, just now, he sensed more than a dozen deep-sea demon whales appearing at the same time. This was unprecedented. Lin Feng had a premonition that the deep-sea demon whale king was about to appear. With that in mind, Lin Feng teleported directly to the sea area where he could sense it and spread out his mind power. At the same time, his eyes flickered as he scanned the area before him. Indeed, there was a group of deep-sea devil whales 800 meters away. They were frolicking on the surface of the sea, and their enormous bodies frightened the surrounding soul beasts into fleeing in all directions. These were all deep-sea demon whales that were between 50,000 and 80,000 years old. Lin Feng just glanced at them and then ignored them. Instead, he continued to look around, his eyes full of expectation. The deep-sea magic whale king should be coming out soon. At this time, Lin Feng was full of patience. He only wanted to squat down on the deep-sea magic whale king. In the end, things didn't go beyond Lin Feng's expectations. This time, more than 10 deep-sea magic whales appeared at the same time, which was a precursor to the emergence of the deep-sea magic whale king. Half a day later, these more than 10 deep-sea magic whales suddenly swam in one direction, as if they were avoiding something. At the same time, the calm seawater began to churn violently. Whoosh! Suddenly, there was a muffled sound, and a water column with a diameter of 10 meters shot up to the sky. Because it was so fast, the air became a little distorted. As the sun shone, the water vapor reflected into a rainbow, which was above the sea and the sky, looked exceptionally beautiful. In the next second, a huge whale that was like a small island floated on the surface of the sea. Its whole body was emitting a dazzling blue light, which even affected the surrounding seawater. The nearby sea area was all dyed blue, and it was even bluer than the sky. The giant beast let out a low muffled roar, and that sound traveled hundreds of miles. The surrounding sea soul beasts were all scared away from this place. Of course, Lin Feng was not affected. He immediately locked on to this giant beast with his mind power. With a huge body of more than 200 meters, one of the two giant eyes on the head was blind. This was definitely the deep-sea magic whale king. There was no escape. Good fellow, you didn't let me wait long. Since you've been caught by me today, don't think about running away. After waiting for so long, Lin Feng finally met it today. He had to squeeze out its value. Thinking of this, he immediately flew out the 1,000 trickery ruler and turned it into a tracking device, which he placed on the deep-sea magic whale king. At the same time, he fully activated the 1,000 trickery ruler and turned it into a giant net of 1,000 meters. Paralysis and life extraction were added to it. In the next moment, Lin Feng waved one hand, and the giant net of 1,000 meters quickly fell and wrapped towards the deep-sea magic whale king. Lin Feng's move was extremely fast, and he was waiting for an opportunity. The deep-sea magic whale king did not even have time to react and was wrapped in the giant net in an instant. At this time, the paralysis toxin spread all over its body, and the giant net was still absorbing the deep-sea magic whale king's life force. It was visible to the naked eye that the surrounding blue light was gradually weakening, and the range of its influence was also shrinking. This was because the deep-sea magic whale king's strength was declining, so the blue light on its body was also slowly weakening. Lin Feng's sudden attack had obviously stunned the deep-sea magic whale king. But soon, it angrily roared, and at the same time, the blue light on its body shone brightly. Its body was madly twisting, and it was clearly trying to break free from Lin Feng's restraint. However, Lin Feng had already wrapped it up, and he continued to supply it with soul power. The giant net of the 1,000 trickery ruler not only grew longer, but also continued to thicken. At the same time, the paralysis toxin quickly seeped into the deep-sea magic whale king's body, making it struggle weaker and weaker. Lin Feng's hands were not idle. A giant hammer condensed in his hands, and he fiercely smashed it towards the deep-sea magic whale king. Stinky little brother! Grandpa has been waiting for a long time. Today, I must hammer you to death. As he spoke, Lin Feng fiercely hammered the deep-sea magic whale king again and again. After about 3 or 4 minutes, the deep-sea magic whale king finally stopped struggling. Under the dual effects of the poison and life extraction, it was directly hammered unconscious. This was a soul beast that was about to break through the million-year level and successfully transform into a dragon. The experience points on its body were very considerable. If Lin Feng encountered it today, of course, he could not directly kill it. He had to trap it and squeeze out all its value. Ding! After an overwhelming battle, the host has knocked out the 990,000-year deep-sea magic whale king. Combat experience has increased. Experience points plus 5646225574. More than 500 million experience points were too good for Lin Feng. According to his past experience, if he squeezed the deep-sea ink king dry, it would give him about 2,000 5 billion experience points. Adding in a high-year soul ring and soul bone, Lin Feng's strength would greatly increase. Thinking of this, Lin Feng did not plan to run around for the next 10 days. He specifically guarded the deep-sea magic whale king. Every day, he would wake it up and beat it, then go to the nearby sea to hunt. Other than that, he would at most take care of the matters of the Soul Master Alliance. Under such circumstances, 10 days passed very quickly. Lin Feng's experience points now reached 14.2 billion. It was really a rapid increase. After that, looking at the dying deep-sea magic whale king, Lin Feng did not continue to beat it. He directly smashed down with all his strength, taking the life of this huge beast. Very soon, a dark red soul ring with a tinge of gold appeared. Lin Feng did not hesitate and directly absorbed it, adding it to the 1,000 trickery ruler. This was a 990,000-year soul ring. The soul skill that it gave Lin Feng was called Deep Sea Domain. This was a domain-type soul skill. After releasing it, the speed of the surrounding enemies would be slowed by 30%. At the same time, the consumption of soul power would accelerate. Although this domain did not have the slightest support effect on Lin Feng, it could greatly reduce the strength of the enemy. The effect was very strong. One had to know that this was the case when the soul ring was 990,000 year. If it broke through to the million-year level, the effect should be strengthened. Thinking of this, Lin Feng was somewhat impatient to break through. However, he was not in a hurry to return. Instead, he slashed open the body of the deep-sea magic whale king and took out a light blue soul bone. This was a torso bone, which was also a 990,000-year soul bone. It was a part that Lin Feng did not have. Without hesitation, Lin Feng directly absorbed it. This soul bone gave Lin Feng 2 soul skills. One of them was a passive soul skill called Sea's Breath. It allowed Lin Feng to live in the sea like a sea soul beast. At the same time, the effect of the soul skill would be slightly increased in the sea. The other soul skill was called Sea's Fury. It was a group attack soul skill that could summon huge waves to attack others. The effect of the soul bone was very strong, especially the age of this soul bone. Like the soul ring, it was also 990,000 year. When the time came, Lin Feng only needed to spend 1 billion experience points to strengthen it to the million-year level. Speaking of which, Lin Feng did not know what a million-year soul bone looked like. He was very much looking forward to it. Thinking of this, Lin Feng did not stay in the sea for long. He quickly flew towards Heaven-Do City and prepared to break through. The current Soul Master Alliance was a little different from before. This was because the rank 99 peak stage Dolua Tang Chen had also joined the Soul Master Alliance. Not only did he become an elder of the alliance, but he also became the chairman of the Clear Sky Sect. Tang Xiao was the one who took the initiative to step down, and Tang Chen was now the chairman. Although this incident did not seem to have any practical impact, it still had a huge impact on the alliance's reputation. After all, Tang Chen was a super senior, and a peak stage rank 99 peak stage Dolu. Even the reclusive rank 97 peak stage Doluos were very respectful of him. Although they were older, they were not as strong as Tang Chen. Therefore, they were a little embarrassed when they faced Tang Chen. Lin Feng's return this time did not cause much of an impact. He just went out alone with Daming. His mind was filled with thoughts of breaking through as soon as possible. Therefore, Lin Feng was not very concerned about the situation in the Soul Master Alliance. Just like that, Lin Feng, Daming, and of course, Thanos came to the Setting Sun Forest's Icefire Yin-Yang Well. This place had a formation that Lin Feng had set up in the past. It had the effect of preventing soul power from seeping out. In addition, it was full of energy. It was a good place to break through. Very soon, Lin Feng did not hesitate. He spent 10 billion experience points to upgrade the Immeasurable Flower's first soul ring to a million-year soul ring. This soul ring's soul skill was Life Bloom. Now that it was a million-year soul ring, its effects were even better than before. It should be able to heal even injuries caused by divine power attack. Following that, Lin Feng spent 2 billion experience points to strengthen the deep-sea demon whale king's soul ring and torso bone. In an instant, not only did his soul ring reach a million-year level, but so did his soul bone. Compared to the soul ring's enhancement effect, the soul bone's enhancement was more obvious. His whole body felt very warm, and his physical strength was rapidly increasing. Lin Feng's hands were full of power. He felt that he could blow up a god with one punch. Of course, this was just an illusion brought about by the sudden increase in strength. In fact, Lin Feng's strength did not increase so much. However, after gaining 2 million-year soul rings and a million-year soul bone, Lin Feng's overall strength increased by almost 30%. This was an extremely terrifying number. In addition, Lin Feng had obtained a few more powerful soul skills. This time, he was confident that he could defeat Bibi Dong and Thousand Daos Lu alone. At this time, the development of the Soul Master Alliance had reached a bottleneck. It was time to destroy the Martial Spirit Hall and merge the Star Luo Empire into it. While thinking about this, Daming not only broke through the 400,000-year bottleneck, but also reached the 500,000-year limit. At this moment, the lightning tribulation appeared and attacked Daming. However, Daming's original body was a sky azure bull python, and he had a trace of dragon bloodline. Now that he had experienced several tribulations, he had already entered the stage of dragon transformation. The dragon bloodline in his body became more and more rich, and Daming's strength also increased rapidly. This small lightning tribulation was nothing to him. Just like that, Daming passed the lightning tribulation and officially transformed into a flood dragon. At this time, he could no longer be called a sky azure bull python. He had to be called a green flood dragon, or more domineering, a star sky azure flood dragon. After passing the tribulation, Daming quickly changed from a flood dragon to a human form. At the same time, he absorbed the surrounding soul power to stabilize his cultivation. In the end, an hour passed, and Daming completely absorbed the overflowing soul power. In the end, his strength reached the level of 520,000. Very good. Since you've finished absorbing, let's go back, Lin Feng said and then directly left. In the same place, Daming was very grateful to Lin Feng. This gratitude was not only for Xiao Wu, Erming, Xiao Ying, Little Moon, and the others, but also for Daming himself. Lin Feng and Thanos had done them, and even the entire Soul Beast Alliance owed them too much. It was no exaggeration to say that even if Lin Feng and Thanos wanted his life, Daming would hand it over without hesitation. From this, it could be seen how important Lin Feng and the others were in Daming's heart. Of course, this was just a hypothetical situation. Lin Feng was so good to them, and there was no way he would want them to die. Under such circumstances, if Daming wanted to repay them, he would have to complete the mission given to him by the Soul Master Alliance. Right, speaking of Daming's mission, he was even more grateful to Lin Feng. This was because he was currently in charge of managing the various large forests in the Heaven Do Empire, especially the soul hunting forests. Chapter 520. Previously, the Martial Soul Hall was in charge of the various large forests. However, after the Martial Soul Hall left, the Soul Master Alliance was slowly taking over the Heaven Do Empire. Hence, this matter fell to them. Later on, when Lin Feng brought Daming to the Soul Master Alliance, he thought of this position. Hence, he directly gave it to him. Now, after a long period of development, under De Ming and Tang San's planning, artificial soul rings were placed in the vicinity of these forests. Currently, there were still many soul masters hunting soul beasts because of the production of artificial soul rings. However, as time passed, more and more people understood artificial soul rings. Coupled with the increase in production, everything would change. Hence, Daming was very excited about the future. When Lin Feng returned to the Soul Master Alliance, It was already half an hour later. At this moment, Lin Feng's abilities had undergone a qualitative change. In addition to the pressure that Bibi Dong gave him, Lin Feng had already made up his mind. After returning to Heaven Do City, Lin Feng was prepared to gather people to attack Martial Soul City. The sooner he destroyed the Martial Soul Hall, the smoother the Soul Master Alliance's development would be. At the same time, Lin Feng would have less to worry about. At this moment, the higher-ups of the Soul Master Alliance were gathered together for a meeting. Just a few days ago, the Snowy Night Emperor finally realized that something was wrong because of the rapid development of the Soul Master Alliance. He could tell that the Soul Master Alliance wasn't just going to take over the Heaven Do Empire. They were going to take over the Star Luo Empire as well. Hence, the Snowy Night Emperor immediately summoned Ning Fengji, who was on good terms with them. After half a day of discussion, Ning Fengji gathered the higher-ups of the Soul Master Alliance for a meeting. His Majesty told me that the Soul Master Alliance's rapid development is threatening the Heaven Do Empire's ruling position. Hence, he asked us to slow down our development. At the same time, he asked us to give them the right to distribute contribution points. Originally, the Soul Master Alliance was only a slightly larger organization in the eyes of the Snowy Night Emperor. He didn't think much of it. He wanted to give the Soul Master Alliance tax exemption and maintain a good relationship with them. However, the Soul Master Alliance's various developments over the past year, as well as their innovative soul tools, had changed the way the entire world lived. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the Soul Master Alliance dominated the entire world. This was especially true for contribution points. In the Heaven Do Empire, contribution points had already replaced gold soul coins as the currency of the world of Soul Masters. This was equivalent to punching the Heaven Do Empire in the face. After they were knocked down, they were viciously stomped on. The Heaven Do Empire is in danger? Where did this come from? Dugubo was taken aback. Heaven Do City is a lot more prosperous than it was before. The number of soul cultivators has increased as well. The various cities within the empire are also a lot more prosperous than before. The Heaven Do Empire should be a lot stronger than before. Why would it be in danger? Being able to see the essence of things through the surface was a personal ability. Unfortunately, not everyone had this ability. At the very least, Dugubo did not see through it. Yes, isn't it a little too much to be in danger? His Majesty Shui Yi has the right to mint gold soul coins. Furthermore, gold soul coins can be exchanged for contribution points. How can he be in danger? A titled Elder Doloa chimed in. Ning Fengji sighed. Gold soul coins require gold ore as the raw material to be minted. However, our contribution points are directly issued. There's no cost involved. Ning Fengji was right. Their contribution points were a business without any cost. As long as they were issued, they would earn money. Of course, they couldn't just mindlessly forge these things. That wouldn't bring any benefits other than inflation. This was why Tang San was very strict with the distribution of contribution points. He even had people who specialized in calculating the correlation between the size of the market and the total amount of contribution points. This way, as long as they controlled the market well, even if they issued some contribution points, it wouldn't affect the market too much. The growth of contribution points is too great. They've already become the universal currency in the world of Soul Masters. It won't be long before contribution points will replace gold soul coins as the universal currency of the entire empire as Li Min's soul tools increase in number. Ning Fengji continued, the economy is the lifeline of an empire. Think about it. The lifeline of the Heaven Do Empire is controlled by the Soul Master Alliance. Isn't this considered in danger? If not for the fact that the Soul Master Alliance was too strong, Emperor Shui Yi would have brought his 10,000 Soul Master legions to force them to abdicate. He wouldn't have given them time to hold a meeting. I see. Our development is indeed in danger for the Heaven Do Empire. Dugubo nodded in realization. If that's the case, let's slow down our development and give His Majesty a share of the distribution of contribution points. Yu Yuanzhen muttered to himself. In his heart, he had always been a part of the Heaven Do Empire. It was normal for him to have such thoughts. How can we do that? The distribution of contribution points is the lifeline of the Soul Master Alliance. If the Heaven Do Empire also has it, we won't be able to control the market. Dugubo immediately rebutted. Dugubo was the marketing department head in charge of Heaven Do City. He was very knowledgeable about the economy. Ningfengji also knew this logic. However, Emperor Shui Yi had given him an ultimatum yesterday. This matter had to be resolved. Otherwise, Shui Yi would use the strength of the entire empire to suppress the Soul Master Alliance. War was the last resort. Even Emperor Shui Yi wouldn't use it easily. Hence, suppression was his current threat. His Majesty said that they want the distribution of contribution points mainly to control the market. They won't do anything rash. Ning Fengji explained. Having the distribution of contribution points meant that a huge cake was placed in front of you. According to Shui Yi, he wouldn't eat this cake. However, he would still eat it. However, this was only Shui Yi's one-sided statement. No one knew if he would really abide by it. Suddenly Tang Chen said, I think this can work. Shui Yi is the emperor of the Heaven Do Empire. We are also a part of the Heaven Do Empire. We should give him the distribution of contribution points. Tang Chen had only joined the Soul Master Alliance a few days ago. Under normal circumstances, a newcomer would be very humble and wouldn't speak much. However, many powerful individuals from the Soul Master Alliance had come over to flatter him. After all, he was Doluo, who was at the peak of rank 99. It was only right for him to be praised. Tang Chen felt like he was going to float because of all these praises. Furthermore, he was the chairman. Hence, he subconsciously said what he was thinking. Tang Chen was also a special individual. Now that he said this, some people who felt a sense of belonging to the Heaven Do Empire expressed their agreement. In terms of numbers, it was about 1/3 of the total. In fact, this number should be 2/3. However, after a year, many people realized how strong the Soul Master Alliance was. This was especially so for the distribution of contribution points. It guaranteed everyone's interests. If others had the distribution rights, the market wouldn't be the only ones affected. The higher-ups of the Soul Master Alliance would also be affected. For the sake of their interests, many people didn't agree with handing over the distribution rights. Didn't they say that the Soul Master Alliance would be exempted from taxes for 2 years? Furthermore, the Soul Master Alliance's development didn't violate any of the Heaven Do Empire's laws. Why should they hand over the distribution rights? Because of this, everyone in the meeting was divided into 2 factions. They didn't have the same views. At this moment, Tang San said, We won't hand over the distribution rights to the Alliance's contribution points. The Soul Master Alliance has developed this bit by bit. It contains our blood, sweat, and tears. Why should we hand it over? His voice wasn't loud, but every word he said was deeply engraved in everyone's hearts. The Soul Master Alliance's development was very smooth. However, the reason why it was so smooth was because of their hard work. Tang San definitely didn't want to hand over the distribution rights. Not to mention Lin Feng's thoughts, the Soul Master Alliance itself. This contribution point system was developed by the Grandmaster and his people. Why should Emperor Shui Yi take it away just like that? Did he want to freeload? Because of this, Tang San didn't want to hand over the distribution rights. Alliance leader is right. We can't agree to this. Dugubo agreed. But we're going against Emperor Shui Yi. Isn't that rebelling? Someone asked. Among the people present, there were those who were on good terms with the royal family. They couldn't understand what everyone was saying. The Soul Master Alliance was a member of the Heaven Do Empire. Since His Majesty had spoken, how could they dare to reject him? What rebelling? What law did we break? Isn't this robbery? Xiao Wu didn't hold back. From Lin Feng's reaction and Tang San's words, she roughly knew that the Soul Master Alliance was going to unify the continent in the future. Hence, she didn't hold back at all. You can't say that. We're all members of the Heaven Do Empire. As long as the Heaven Do Empire is strong, the alliance will be strong. Tang Chen furrowed his brow. As he hadn't experienced the Soul Master Alliance's development over the past year, he didn't feel much of a sense of belonging. At the same time, as a member of the Heaven Do Empire, his sense of belonging to the Empire was higher than that of the Soul Master Alliance. Furthermore, he hadn't changed his point of view. Hence, he felt that everyone's words were a little ridiculous. Great-grandfather, you've just arrived. You don't know much about the Soul Master Alliance. You should learn more, Tang San said calmly. As the alliance leader of the Soul Master Alliance, Lin Feng had taught him that he had to be serious and prudent when making important decisions. He could discuss the situation in a meeting, but he had to find a reasonable reason for his decision. Evidently, Tang Chen's reason wasn't very reasonable. Under normal circumstances, Tang San would directly ask the person who was speaking to shut up. However, Tang Chen was his elder. Hence, he was more polite. Xiao San, although you're the alliance leader, you can't be careless when it comes to such important matters. Shui Yi is the emperor of the Heaven Do Empire. It's only right that he has the right to distribute contribution points. Tang Chen's tone sounded as if it was for his own good. He still felt that Tang San was doing something stupid. If it was in the past, Tang Chen definitely wouldn't have said such a thing. However, because he didn't know much about the Soul Master Alliance, and because he had been flattered for the past few days, he was a little arrogant. Furthermore, Tang San was his junior. Tang Chen subconsciously wanted to lecture him. Actually, Tang Chen regretted it as soon as he said this. This was because everyone present had quietened down. It was obvious that he had said something wrong. However, Tang San was his junior. What was wrong with lecturing him? If he had stage fright now, he would lose face. Great-grandfather, you don't know much about the Soul Master Alliance. It's better for you to listen from the side. Tang San tried his best to remain calm. The main thing was that Tang Hao and Tang Xiao were beside him. He could ignore Tang Xiao, but Tang Hao was his father. Tang San didn't want to be rude to Tang Chen in front of his father. His current idea was very simple. He would let Tang Chen listen from the side and make a decision first. At the same time, he would find time to have a good talk with Tang Chen. Understood. Why don't I understand? Tang Chen forced himself to say, contribution points are very important to the Soul Master Alliance. However, the Soul Master Alliance has to be a part of the Heaven Do Empire. We can't, however. Before he could finish his sentence, a low shout came from the door. Then, leave the Heaven Do Empire. This low shout spread throughout the hall and everyone heard it. In the next second, everyone turned around and looked at the door. They saw Lin Feng and Thanos standing side by side at the door. The sentence just now came from Lin Feng's mouth. As soon as they finished speaking, the two of them began walking towards the crowd step by step. The hall was extremely silent. Every step they took seemed to knock on everyone's hearts. At this moment, everyone's emotions and expressions were different. Some were surprised, while others were shocked. Tang Chen, who had a "it's for your own good" expression earlier, was now shocked. After he woke up, he remembered everything that had happened. Especially before he woke up, he was beaten up. Right now, the person who beat him up was right in front of him. How could he not be shocked? That's right. When Lin Feng beat Tang Chen up, he used the identity of Thanos. When he saw Tang Chen, Thanos's expression was indifferent. He didn't say anything. At this moment, Tang Chen's heart was already in a state of shock. Previously, when he was unconscious, he wasn't as strong as he was now. However, he was still at rank 99. However, Thanos was able to beat him up so easily. What kind of strength was this? God. Therefore, when he faced Thanos, he was so shocked that he didn't know what to say. At this moment, Lin Feng stood in front of everyone and said, "Since all of you are here, I don't have to gather everyone. Today, we will destroy the Martial Spirit Hall. After that, we will occupy Martial Spirit City and enter the Star Luo Empire. In the end, the Soul Master Alliance will unify the continent." When he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. Chapter 521. At this moment, Lin Feng was so powerful that he didn't need to hide his ambition anymore. He could just say it out loud. "Deacon Lin, do you mean to kill the clan leader?" Ning Fengji asked uncertainly. This matter was too important and too shocking. Destroying the Martial Spirit Hall was still fine as it was already part of the plan. But now, Ning Fengji actually wanted to destroy two empires and unify the entire continent. This was something that Ning Fengji had never thought of doing. He wasn't the only one. Most of the people in the crowd had never thought of unifying the continent. Under the rule of the Heaven Do Empire, becoming the #1 force was already their greatest wish. That's right. Thanos nodded and gave a response. Seeing this, everyone was even more astonished. This wasn't a joke. They were really going to unify the continent and attack the Martial Spirit Hall now. This news came too suddenly. Subconsciously, everyone looked at Tang Chen. After all, Tang Chen's attitude was the most unyielding just now. Everyone wanted to see what he had to say now. Being stared at by everyone, Tang Chen felt extremely awkward at this moment. Because of his strength and identity, no matter what he said, there wouldn't be anything wrong with it. At most, he would be refuted. However, with Thanos here, he felt that he would be beaten up if he said something wrong. After all, Thanos was too powerful. Tang Chen even suspected that he had become a god. Otherwise, how could he beat up a rank 99 titled Dolua so easily? Furthermore, Tang Chen was a peak stage Dolua. If he was beaten up in front of everyone, it would be too embarrassing. He wouldn't have anywhere to hide his old face in the future. Therefore, at this moment, he didn't dare to disagree at all. After being stunned for a while, Tang Chen squeezed out a sentence from his mouth. "Since the Soul Master Alliance has such a grand idea and has the strength, I think this is a good plan." Everyone. Tang Chen was firmly on the side of the Heaven Do Empire just a moment ago. Once Thanos spoke, he stood back. This change in attitude was ridiculous. On the other hand, Lin Feng didn't care too much about it. Tang Chen's experience points were almost depleted, and it would take at least half a year for him to recover. Therefore, in Lin Feng's eyes, Tang Chen was just an average titled battle pet warrior, Dolu. With that thought in mind, Lin Feng said, "You have 10 minutes to make arrangements. 10 minutes later, we will set off and launch a sneak attack on Martial Spirit City. Anyone who tries to stop us will be killed without mercy. Those who leak the information will be killed without mercy." Although Lin Feng's tone was very calm, the hearts of everyone present trembled. They knew that Lin Feng's words were not false. If someone really leaked the information, they would die. Lin Feng waved his hand and said, "All right, let's disperse. We'll gather at the Soul Master Alliance's plaza in 10 minutes. Because of Thanos, every time Lin Feng spoke, everyone would be very quiet. After all, Thanos was too strong. His strength was obtained through hard fights. Everyone was incomparably convinced. After hearing Lin Feng's words, everyone immediately dispersed. At this time, only Tang San, Ning Fengji, Tang Hao, and the other insiders who were close to Lin Feng were left in the hall. "Feng Gu, it's good to attack the Martial Spirit Palace. I want to be the vanguard." Xiao Wu was the first to run up and said with a smile. Ever since her strength had been greatly improved, Xiao Wu felt that it was boring to spar with others. She hadn't been able to fight to her heart's content. At this time, her hands were very itchy. Feng Gu, are we really going to attack the martial spirit palace now? Ning Rongrong asked worriedly. It was mainly because this matter was too sudden. They didn't know about this at all before. Ning Rongrong also had to consider Ning Fengji's situation, so she said this. If it was just Ning Rongrong alone, she wouldn't have doubted Lin Feng's words at all. Yes, in 10 minutes we will set off. Lin Feng explained. Mr. Destroy's strength has improved again. Now he is confident to destroy the martial spirit palace, so he feels that now is the right time. Hearing this, everyone else's faces were filled with joy. There was not much shock, because they knew that Thanos' strength had been improving. And if they were happy, it was because of what Lin Feng said before. If it was really as Lin Feng said, the martial spirit palace would be destroyed and the continent would be unified. In this way, the Soul Master Alliance would spread across the entire continent in a year at most. On the side, Tang Chen had long been stunned by Lin Feng's words. He was different from the others. He didn't know the specific situation of Thanos, but he knew that Thanos was extremely strong. His strength was comparable to that of a god. At this moment, Lin Feng actually said that Thanos' strength had improved again. How was this possible? In Tang Chen's impression, the threshold from rank 99 to rank 100 was already extremely difficult. It could be said that with his talent, he didn't even know how to cross it. And in Tang Chen's opinion, his current strength was already the ceiling of Dolua's continent. Thanos could still become stronger when he could beat him up. This was simply beyond Tang Chen's understanding. Could it be that Thanos was really as he thought, that he had become a god at rank 100? The main reason was that Thanos was too mysterious. Tang Chen didn't know much about him. Otherwise, he might have already admired him. Xiao San, as long as the martial spirit palace is destroyed, the plan will be ready to start. Lin Feng nodded at Tang San. Plan? What plan? Ning Fengji was stunned and asked. Not only him, but everyone else was stunned. They didn't know what secret plan Tang San and Lin Feng had. Hearing this, Tang San signaled to Lin Feng with his eyes. After receiving an affirmative answer, he smiled and said, The Soul Master Alliance wants to unify the continent. This has been planned since a long time ago. When the Soul Master Alliance was first established, Brother Feng told me about this matter, and we've already planned our future development. Originally, I wanted to destroy the Martial Spirit Palace 2 years later, then spend half a year to unify the continent. Then, let the Soul Master Alliance develop rapidly all over the continent. Now that we want to destroy the Martial Spirit Palace in advance, the plan will be brought forward. I see. Feng Gu is really far-sighted. Ma Hongjun immediately flattered. The others were also surprised. They didn't expect that Lin Feng had thought about this matter more than a year ago. Then Emperor Shuiyi. Ning Fengji asked, if the Soul Master Alliance unifies the continent, how will the two empires deal with it? The Soul Master Alliance had been developing for more than a year. The interests of the various Soul Master organizations in the Heaven Do Empire were already tied together. Ning Fengji didn't think in this direction before. Now that Lin Feng pointed it out, Ning Fengji's thoughts changed faster than anyone else. He learned to think from the perspective of a victor. After all, the Soul Master Alliance was too strong. Ning Fengji didn't think that they would lose. If they know what's good for them, then it's fine. If they don't, then I can only ask them to become history. Lin Feng's words were more tactful. To put it more crudely, he was asking them to die. At this moment Dai Mubai said, Don't worry about the Star Luo Empire. When the time comes, they will all join the Soul Master Alliance. Dai Mubai and Lin Feng had already discussed this before. There was no need to talk nonsense now. As for the Heaven Do Empire, Ning Fengji said, as for Shuiyi, I will have a good talk with him. I hope there will be a good ending. Ning Fengji's relationship with the Heaven Do Empire's royal family was quite good. especially since Xueqinghe was his disciple. Because of this, he didn't really want the Soul Master Alliance and the Heaven Do Empire to fight. That's for the best. Lin Feng nodded. Then, he said, "Alright, go and prepare. There are still 5 minutes before we set off." When he spoke, Lin Feng was the absolute center. As for Tang Chen, when Thanos appeared, other than Tang Xiao, who was still paying attention to his grandfather, the others didn't have time to look at him. Because of this, Tang Chen seemed to be a little marginalized. But in the end, Thanos suddenly said, "When we fight Martial Spirit City later, Tang Chen, remember to hold back either the 1,000 streams or BB Dong. I will help you after I deal with one of them." When Thanos spoke, everyone quietened down. Then, they all looked at Tang Chen. At this moment, the latter was stunned for a moment before he immediately nodded and said, "Okay." He looked very much like a student who had been called out by a teacher, submissive. Because of this, everyone realized that Tang Chen should have seen Thanos before. Otherwise, the situation wouldn't be like this. But because of the special situation, they didn't ask too much about the reason. Just like that, everyone quickly left the hall and walked towards the plaza. At this moment, there were only 3 minutes left of the 10 minutes that Lin Feng said earlier. Thanos stood at the front of the plaza and stood quietly without saying a word. Because of this, the people who rushed over didn't dare to speak. They quietly waited for everyone to arrive. Suddenly, someone walked in from the entrance. It was Xueqinghe. Huoyu Hao wanted to find Oscar and ask him about soul tool techniques, but he happened to bump into everyone else. Seeing this, he immediately ran over and asked, "So many strong people have gathered. Are you guys going to attack the Martial Spirit Hall?" Xueqinghe knew that the Soul Master Alliance and the Martial Spirit Hall were not on good terms. One day they would attack the Martial Spirit Hall. But what he didn't expect was that this day would come so suddenly and so quickly. "Yes," Xiao Wu said excitedly. "As long as the Martial Spirit Hall is destroyed, the Soul Master Alliance will be able to unify the continent." Unify the continent? Xueqinghe was shocked. Xiao Wu realized that she had said something wrong. But after thinking about it, she couldn't hide this matter from him sooner or later. Furthermore, Lin Feng didn't scold her. Thus she continued, "That's right. Feng Gu said that the goal of the Soul Master Alliance is to unify the entire continent. Your Highness, please go back and talk to His Majesty. It won't be good if a fight breaks out." Hearing this, Xueqinghe's expression changed drastically. However, the main reason for his change wasn't because of the Heaven Do Empire, but because the Martial Spirit Hall was going to be destroyed. His mother, Bibi Dong, and grandfather, Qian Daolu, were all from the Martial Spirit Hall. Previously, because the two of them were very strong, Xueqinghe wasn't worried that their lives would be in danger. But after spending more than a year with Lin Feng and the others, he clearly knew how strong Lin Feng and Thanos were. Now, Tang Chen had joined the Soul Master Alliance. This time, the Martial Spirit Hall was going to be destroyed. A few days ago, Qian Daolu secretly came to Heaven Do City and met with Xueqinghe secretly. At that time, Qian Daolu told him about the angel inheritance and the reason for bringing him back. However, at that time, Xueqinghe was working hard to learn soul tool technology from Oscar. In addition, he didn't think that the Soul Master Alliance would attack the Martial Spirit Hall in a short period of time. So, under his repeated requests, he decided to go back to accept the angel inheritance after he learned Oscar's soul tool technology a month later. However, Xueqinghe didn't expect Lin Feng to attack the Martial Spirit Hall directly after a few days. It was too sudden. As he thought, he immediately came to Lin Feng's side and transmitted his voice. "Deacon Lin, you know that Bibi Dong is my mother, and Qian Daolu is my grandfather. They are all my family. I hope, when the time comes, you can tell Mr. Destroy to spare their lives." Thanos' strength was too terrifying. Xueqinghe knew that it was only a matter of time before the Soul Master Alliance destroyed the Martial Spirit Hall. When he met Qian Daolu previously, Xueqinghe advised them to disband the Martial Spirit Hall. However, Qian Daolu wouldn't agree to such a thing. Xueqinghe was very helpless. Now, he was even more helpless. He could only beg Lin Feng to spare their lives. In fact, it was better to say this to Thanos. However, Xueqinghe knew that he wasn't qualified to say this, so he could only look for Lin Feng. On the other hand, Lin Feng wouldn't kill Qian Daolu and Bibi Dong for the time being. After all, they still had a lot of EXP on them. Especially Bibi Dong, who was about to become a god at level 100. If she really broke through, her EXP would increase greatly. After all, she was Lin Feng's super EXP baby. As for whether he would kill them or not, it would depend on the situation. If they truly repented and were sincere, it wasn't impossible to spare their lives. Of course, if they stubbornly resisted and were stubborn, Lin Feng wouldn't spare their lives. As for Xueqinghe's hatred, Lin Feng didn't care. Moreover, he had investigated Xueqinghe before. He was sent here as a spy when he was very young. Moreover, from what he had seen in the past, Xueqinghe was still full of hatred for the Martial Spirit Hall. The only reason he begged Lin Feng to spare their lives was because they were related by blood. There wasn't much affection between them. Under such circumstances, even if he killed the two of them, Xueqinghe wouldn't say anything as time passed. Thinking about this, Lin Feng transmitted his voice to Xueqinghe. I'll pass on the message. However, it's inevitable that swords have no eyes. There's no way to guarantee the final outcome. However, you should have seen that our Soul Master Alliance treats our captives well. The experts from the Martial Spirit Hall that we captured last time are still being used as sparring partners. When the time comes, if Bibi Dong and Qian Daolu know what's good for them, they still have a high chance of survival. I hope so. Hearing this, Xueqinghe's emotions were complicated. He couldn't do anything about the current situation. He felt very helpless. Chapter 522. Although he was helpless, Xueqinghe knew that this was all he could do. The rest was up to fate. Feng Gu, everyone is gathered. When do we set off? Tang San reminded him. At this moment, almost 10 minutes had passed. The higher-ups of the Soul Master Alliance, titled Doluo, were all ready to go. After all, what they were going to do next was to destroy the Martial Spirit Hall and unify the continent. This was too exciting. How could they treat it calmly? We'll set off right away. Lin Feng smiled, then said to Xueqinghe, go back and tell Shui Yi to be sensible. Otherwise, after destroying the Martial Spirit Hall, the Heaven Do Empire will be next. With that, Lin Feng ignored Xueqinghe and waved to everyone behind him. Let's go. As his voice fell, Slayer Overlord's big hand spread out, and a 100-meter-long warship appeared out of thin air, floating quietly in the air. Of course, this was made by Lin Feng using the 1000G ruler. The Soul Master Alliance's logo was imprinted on it, and there were dragons and phoenixes carved on it. It looked extremely domineering. When everyone saw this scene, they were all shocked. Such a huge warship could float in midair. Could it be a spaceship? This thing was too novel. Anyway, no one had seen it before. At this moment, they were all very curious. Thanos shouted, everyone board the ship. Hearing this, they couldn't care less about being shocked. They quickly jumped and landed on the ship. On the other hand, Tang San slowly came to Lin Feng's side and exclaimed, Brother Feng, is this the Marvel family's treasured artifact? It looks so domineering. This was the first time Lin Feng had shown this thing in front of others. Even Tang San was very shocked. You can say so. Lin Feng smiled. But this spaceship doesn't require very high technology. Xiao Ao and the others should be able to build it after studying it for a while. It's just that the soul power consumption is very high. If we want to promote it, the size of the ship has to be limited. Alright, let's talk about this later. Let's go up first. With that, Lin Feng grabbed Tang San and leaped onto the spaceship. After everyone had boarded, Lin Feng commanded the flying ship to rise into the sky. After determining the direction, he quickly flew towards Martial Spirit City. Everyone in Heaven Do City was stunned by this scene. Then, a heated discussion broke out. Is this the Soul Tool technology of the Soul Master Alliance? Too strong. In the past few years, the Soul Master Alliance's laboratory has produced many new things. This spaceship should have come from there as well. Yes, I heard that this Soul Tool technology was passed down from the Marvel family. It's too powerful. Soul Tools were an extremely powerful technology. The reason why the world of Soul Masters didn't have much knowledge about them in the past was because too many of them had been lost. Very little of them had been passed down, and they were very basic. However, many powerful Soul Tool technologies had been recreated under the guidance of Master Hua, Oscar, and the others. With the passage of time, it wouldn't be long before Soul Tool technology flourished. At this moment, the higher-ups of the Soul Master Alliance were also shocked by the technology of the spaceship. They never expected such a large spaceship to be able to fly. The main reason was that it was extremely fast, beyond everyone's imagination. Among the people present, there weren't many who had the confidence to surpass this speed. Even if they did, it wouldn't last for long. At most, they would only use it when escaping. Therefore, everyone was extremely curious about this. However, due to the difference in status, they didn't dare to ask anything. They only looked around curiously. Of course, curiosity aside, everyone was very vigilant. After all, they were about to go to war with the Martial Spirit Hall. They had to be vigilant. Just like that, about half an hour later, Lin Feng drove the spaceship out of the Heaven Do Empire and arrived at the area between the two empires. This meant that they were only 1 or 2 minutes away from Martial Spirit City. At this moment, Lin Feng said loudly, "Later, Mr. Destroy will directly rush into Martial Spirit City. 2 people will guard each of the 4 city gates to prevent anyone from escaping. As for the elders and consecrators of the Martial Spirit Hall, you 2 will be in a group and deal with them separately. This is the attack plan. Just follow the plan." While speaking, Lin Feng waved his hand and dozens of white papers flew to the crowd, accurately. The people they had to deal with were written on the papers. It was clear at a glance. When the time came, they just had to follow the plan. "Is everyone clear?" Half a minute later, Lin Feng asked. "Yes." Everyone answered in unison. They were all very excited. At this moment, everyone could even see the outline of Martial Spirit City in the sky. They were all looking forward to the prosperity after the Martial Spirit Hall was destroyed. In fact, in Lin Feng's opinion, some of the things that the Martial Spirit Hall did were quite good. Although their ultimate goal was to strengthen themselves, they at least gave the civilian Soul Masters a way to become stronger. Unlike the aristocrats of the Heaven Do Empire, the social class was too strict, and it was difficult for civilians to get ahead. Now, most of the Soul Master forces in the Soul Master Alliance were the aristocratic class in the past. They hated the Martial Spirit Hall. Especially now that their strength was enough to beat the Martial Spirit Hall, it was basically impossible to lose today's battle. Everyone loved to win. So at this time, when they heard that they were going to destroy the Martial Spirit Hall, they were very excited. It's good that you understand. The battle is about to start. The auxiliary Soul Master status can be added. While speaking, Lin Feng's attention was also focused on Martial Spirit City. Behind him, the auxiliary Soul Masters on the spaceship, especially Ning Fengji, released all their soul power at this time and blessed everyone with soul skills. In Martial Spirit City, Bibi Dong suddenly frowned and looked at the sky in the north. She felt that there seemed to be a great danger coming toward Martial Spirit City. Was the Soul Master Alliance attacking? Lin Feng drove the spaceship at full speed. The soul power fluctuation was very strong, but Lin Feng covered it all. Bibi Dong could sense it because she was strong and had a special premonition of danger. At this time, she didn't dare to delay. She immediately flew above the Pope's palace and looked north. In the next second, her expression changed drastically and she shouted, "Everyone! Retreat according to the plan." As a peak rank 99 Doluo, Bibi Dong's physical fitness was very strong, and her eyesight was also very good. Although Lin Feng's spaceship was just a small black dot from Martial Spirit City, Bibi Dong still found the symbol of the Soul Master Alliance. Combined with the previous feeling, it was definitely the Soul Master Alliance attacking. "Meet the enemy! Meet the enemy!" As Bibi Dong's voice spread throughout Martial Spirit City, the strong people in the city responded and walked out of their houses. Because of Tang Chen's appearance, Bibi Dong had already thought of a way out. Now, many of the low-level soul masters in Martial Spirit City had evacuated in advance and entered the Star Luo Empire. Everyone in the city right now was at least a soul sage. Therefore, they had planned that when the Soul Master Alliance really attacked, the strong people would come out to stop them, and the weaker soul sages and soul Doluo would immediately retreat. At the same time, Lin Feng also discovered the situation in Martial Spirit City in the sky and immediately shouted, "The people from the Martial Spirit Palace are out. Find your targets and prepare to fight." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng steered the spaceship and flew downward rapidly. At this moment, Lin Feng's original body and avatar fused together. Lin Feng had become an ordinary avatar with the strength of a titled Dolu. In less than 10 seconds, the spaceship was hovering above the Martial Spirit City. As they didn't know the situation of the Soul Master Alliance, Bibi Dong and the others didn't attack in advance, but purely defended. In the next second, Thanos jumped down from the spaceship and shouted, "Bibi Dong, I'll give you a chance today. Surrender directly and I can spare your lives." After he said that, the people from the Soul Master Alliance also jumped down and followed behind Thanos. They had already been reinforced with auxiliary-type soul skills, and their powerful auras were actually released, suppressing the people from the Martial Spirit Palace. Especially Tang Chen, who was at the side, his eyes were fixed on the Thousand Dao stream, full of fighting spirit. Obviously, Tang Chen had already chosen his opponent, and Bibi Dong would be left for Thanos to deal with. "Surrender," Bibi Dong sneered. "You're delusional." Originally, when he saw Thanos and the others coming aggressively, Bibi Dong thought that they were going to start a fight. That would make them more passive. After all, there was still a group of soul masters in Martial Spirit City who hadn't evacuated. Now that Thanos wanted to talk, she naturally had to stall for time. However, on Thanos' side, it was easy to see through her thoughts. Delaying time? This is useless. I've sent people to guard the 4 city gates now. Other than surrendering, you can only die. When the spaceship landed just now, the people who had been arranged previously left in advance. At that time, everyone's attention was on the spaceship, and their quiet departure didn't attract much attention. Hearing this, Bibi Dong's expression changed. Then, he extended his spiritual power and soon found that Thanos was right. There were people guarding the city gate. Seeing this, Bibi Dong knew that he had to fight a good battle today. Only then could the Martial Spirit Palace break out. However, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. On the Martial Spirit Palace's side, there were only a little more than 10 titled Doluo powerhouses, including her and the Thousand Dao stream. However, on the Soul Master Alliance's side, not only were there Tang Chen and Thanos, but Tang San was also holding what seemed to be the Sea God's trident in his hand, and he was also emitting a dangerous aura. In addition, there were more than 15 titled Doluo powerhouses present, and they were all of high quality. Many of them were at rank 96, rank 97, and even rank 98. Under such circumstances, it was still 2 against 1. The Martial Spirit Palace was bound to lose. Bibi Dong's only hope was that she would have an epiphany during the battle and then directly reach rank 100. That wasn't an empty promise. If Bibi Dong continued to meditate, she was confident that she could make a breakthrough in 1.5 months. If she continued to fight, as long as she understood enough, it was very likely that she could suddenly reach rank 100. Thinking this, Bibi Dong shouted, "So what? You want us to surrender? No way." At this moment, Thanos saw the determination in Bibi Dong's eyes. He knew that it was impossible for her to surrender directly. They had to fight. With that in mind, he shouted, "Do it!" While speaking, Thanos used all kinds of buffs on himself. Then, a long rod appeared in his hand and he dashed toward Bibi Dong. The others also took action and pressed against the martial spirit palace members. Right then, Bibi Dong shouted, "Formation!" In fact, she didn't need to shout at all. Apart from thousand streams, everyone stood together and intertwined their soul power to form a special shield. That was a kind of joint skill that the consecrated warriors had used when they attacked the martial spirit palace. At this moment, there were more people. Even if Tang San and Xiao Wu were to attack with all their might, they should be able to hold on for a minute or two. Boom! Thanos hit the air with his rod, and a huge wave of soul power passed through the air and went straight to Bibi Dong. At this moment, the Rakshasa scimitar appeared in Bibi Dong's hand, and a dark red glow was emitted from her body. That light was incomparably tough, and it actually withstood Lin Feng's attack from a distance. At the same time, Tang Chen also faced Thousand Streams. He directly shifted the battlefield and flew into the air. The two of them were about the same strength. In the sky, Thousand Streams was slightly stronger than Tang Chen, but they could still fight for a short period of time. Under Tang San's lead, the others went straight to the group of consecrated warriors and elders. Before Xiao Wu came, she wanted to have a good fight, but the current situation made her thoughts go down the drain. Now, she could only follow Tang San and attack this shield together. However, this shield was extremely hard. Even if everyone attacked together, they couldn't break it. Even Tang San's Poseidon's trident couldn't break it. This was the combined defense of close to 10 titled battle pet warriors, Dolu. It was still extremely powerful, and even Lin Feng couldn't break it in one blow. Therefore, at this moment, they could only exhaust the soul power of this group of people. Xiao Wu. Tang San glanced at Xiao Wu. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was already expressed. He was going to release a martial soul fusion skill. Xiao Wu did not hesitate. She immediately added her soul power to his, and their soul powers fused together. At this moment, Tang San's speed was extremely fast. He activated his flying soul skill and went straight for Thousand Streams. Wasting time below wasn't his idea. Expanding the results of the battle was the best choice. In fact, Tang San wanted to find trouble with Bibi Dong more, but Thanos was fighting over there and it was difficult for him to intervene. Therefore, it was better to find Thousand Streams. In an instant, everyone found their enemies and many people were captured at the city gate. Lin Feng was also fighting with Bibi Dong. He was confident that he could kill Bibi Dong within 10 seconds, but the problem was that Lin Feng didn't want to kill her yet. Bibi Dong still had a lot of experience points to be gained. If she could break through level 100 in the future, her experience points would increase even more. Most importantly, Bibi Dong was the only one who could break through level 100 in a short period of time. Therefore, Lin Feng had to capture her alive. Chapter 523. While the battle was going on in Martial Spirit City, Emperor Shui Yi was in a dilemma. He was very shocked. The Soul Master Alliance had actually warned him not to act rashly. Wasn't this a little too arrogant? He was the Emperor of the Heaven Do Empire. Not only did an alliance dare to ignore him, but they even wanted to destroy his rule in the future. Shui Yi was seriously provoked. However, Shui Yi was very clear about the strength of the Soul Master Alliance. They were too strong. Now that all the Soul Master factions in the Heaven Do Empire had joined the Soul Master Alliance, the Heaven Do Empire couldn't resist such an opponent. He only hated himself now for not realizing their intentions earlier. He was so proud of himself back then, saying that he would only exempt them from taxes for 2 years. All he could think about was the beautiful future. Now it seemed like he was a joke back then. He didn't even realize that he had fallen into their trap. But now, he had to hand over his empire to someone else. He was really unwilling to do so. At this moment, Shui Yi even hoped that the Martial Spirit Hall wouldn't be defeated. That way, the Soul Master Alliance wouldn't have time to care about the Heaven Do Empire. However, this was only a temporary solution. No matter what the situation was, the Heaven Do Empire would be annexed by the Soul Master Alliance. This organization controlled almost 90% of the Soul Masters in the Heaven Do Empire. Even the 3 upper sects had joined. There were more than 10 titled Dolua powerhouses. This was especially so for the Marvel family's leader, Thanos. The Heaven Do Empire's army was like paper in front of such a powerhouse. Shui Yi couldn't think of anything other than praying against such a power. Martial Spirit City. At this moment there was a huge battle in the city center. In the sky, Tang San and Tang Qin were fighting Thousand Dao Lu. As the destined child of Dolua's world, Tang San was still very strong. Especially under Lin Feng's guidance, he was much stronger than he was in the original novel. Although he was only at the level of Soul Dolua, he could unleash the strength of a rank 99 Soul Master with the help of his divine weapon, Soul Ring and Soul Bone. As the possessor of the Angel Martial Spirit, Qian Dao Lu had a great advantage in the air. However, he could only barely defend against the combined attacks of the 2 experts. Down below, the protective cover formed by the consecrators and elders of the Martial Spirit Palace was already in danger. Dolua from the Soul Master Alliance had improved tremendously over the past year because of the Soul Power Control technique. On the other hand, those from the Martial Soul Hall had remained stagnant. In this situation, the Martial Spirit Hall would run out of soul power in at most half a minute. On the other side, the battle between Thanos and Bibi Dong was not as intense. Because Thanos wanted to capture Bibi Dong alive, he didn't take the initiative to attack during the fight. He just kept dodging and wasting Bibi Dong's soul power. It was only when Bibi Dong wanted to recover his soul force that Thanos took the initiative to attack. In this way, Bibi Dong's soul power was being rapidly consumed. Moreover, Thanos had deliberately shifted the battlefield during the battle, separating Bibi Dong from the others. In this way, it was difficult for others to support her, and Thanos was more confident in capturing her alive. Swish! The Rakshasa scimitar in Bibi Dong's hand tore through space and instantly appeared in front of Thanos. However, Thanos seemed to have expected it and easily dodged. At this point, the two had been fighting for a minute. 1 minute was not long, but in the eyes of experts, such a long time was enough for you to be killed hundreds of times. At first, Bibi Dong thought that as long as she could hold on for a while, she would have a chance to break the rules and break through to rank 100. However, Thanos was too cunning. He kept dodging and had very little time to attack. Under such circumstances, Bibi Dong couldn't comprehend anything at all. They had to fight head-on. After the scimitar missed again, Bibi Dong mocked, "Why are you like a mouse? Don't you even have the courage to fight me head-on?" Thanos didn't say a word and directly used spatial imprisonment to envelop Bibi Dong. Want to stop and rest? No way. Bibi Dong was definitely anxious now. In terms of her intentions, Thanos could guess. There were only 2 possibilities. First, she wanted to provoke him and make him fight head-on. Second, she wanted to buy time and talk to distract him while taking the opportunity to recover her soul power. Of course, there was a third possibility, which was to find a way to escape. But no matter which one it was, Thanos' overlord would not let it succeed. BB Dong should be captured alive by him today. Looking down, the protective barrier was about to break. In order to prevent BB Dong from abandoning everyone and escaping alone, Thanos turned the 1,000 manipulation ruler into a giant net and surrounded the area where the two were fighting. Although this net wasn't very sturdy, it could still stop BB Dong for a moment. Thanos also contaminated BB Dong's body with many fragments of the 1,000 manipulation ruler. Unless she could run out of the range of his spiritual power in an instant, BB Dong wouldn't be able to escape. After everything was settled, Thanos' eyes focused. The 1,000 manipulation ruler turned into a spear and suddenly swung it to the left. Dang! The Rakshasa scimitar that flew diagonally just happened to hit the spear and was sent flying. BB Dong's expression didn't change. She quickly retracted her scimitar and continued to attack. On Thanos' side, his expression was refreshed. Because through this exchange, he found that BB Dong's soul power was not much. The reason why Thanos didn't use paralysis or life absorption before was that on one hand, he didn't want BB Dong to comprehend the operation of soul power. On the other hand, BB Dong's soul power was special and could resist these characteristics. But now, BB Dong's soul power was much weaker. If he absorbed life force and used paralysis, it would be effective. Thinking about it, the giant net that was condensed earlier suddenly shrank and wrapped towards the middle. The light above flickered. Before it got close, BB Dong felt a great threat from it. She wanted to resist, but at the same time, Thanos also made his move. Suddenly, countless ribbons appeared around her. They were multicolored and looked very gorgeous. But BB Dong knew that these things were extremely dangerous. If she encountered them, there wouldn't be any good results. Thinking about it, BB Dong's soul power condensed into a ball and shook it towards the surroundings, sweeping away these ribbons. However, how could Thanos' attack be so simple? While the ribbons were shaken, they directly split into countless thin threads and continued to wrap towards BB Dong. At the same time, the giant net on the periphery also suddenly shrank, wrapping BB Dong tightly. This series of attacks was extremely fast. BB Dong didn't have time to react at all and was directly trapped. For a time, Thanos' soul power suddenly increased, and the paralysis toxin quickly invaded BB Dong's body. Her life force was also rapidly decreasing, and her soul power was also rapidly consumed. At this moment, the layer of armor on BB Dong's body was broken, and Thanos' attacks were all real. In less than a few seconds, as the effect of the paralysis toxin became stronger and stronger, BB Dong's spirit became more and more dispirited, and soon fell asleep. At this point, after more than a minute of delay, BB Dong was finally captured alive by Thanos. The 1,000 machine ruler turned into a rope and directly tied BB Dong up tightly. The Rakshasa scimitar in her hand was also imprisoned by Thanos' soul power and then tied together. After that, Thanos reacted quickly and didn't immediately go down. Instead, he split out his main body and then the two of them attacked, creating the illusion that they were still fighting. Furthermore, the giant net was also erected, as if Thanos' attack didn't work and BB Dong was still counterattacking. The reason why Lin Feng did this was because he only had one goal, and that was to defeat the entire martial spirit hall. He wanted to give others confidence, especially the 1,000 Dao School. Otherwise, if BB Dong was defeated, the 1,000 Dao School would definitely flee. The angel's flying speed wasn't slower than his, and it even had some special soul skills. Lin Feng wasn't 100% confident that he could catch up. Therefore, he needed to stabilize the situation. At the same time, Lin Feng artificially moved the battlefield towards the 1,000 Dao School and even imitated BB Dong's voice to berate Thanos. In Dolua's world, there were also people who used schemes when fighting, but there were fewer of them. This was because Soul Masters preferred to fight straightforwardly, and they had less experience, so their battle thinking was limited by this era. As for Lin Feng, he had seen too many things in novels and television dramas. As for schemes and whatnot, even if he wasn't familiar with them, he would at least imitate them. Under such circumstances, Thanos easily deceived the Thousand Dao School and the others, causing everyone to mistakenly think that Bibi Dong was still fighting. Below, the barrier formed by the few consecrators and elders had already reached its limit. They didn't have much soul power left in their bodies. Second consecrator, we can't hold on any longer. Once our soul power is exhausted, we will definitely die. Let's hurry up and retreat. An elder shouted. Actually, everyone knew this, but Bibi Dong was still fighting, which represented their hope. As long as they could hold on for another second, Bibi Dong would break through and become a god. However, this second was extremely difficult. As time passed, their hope became less and less, and the pressure in their hearts became greater and greater. The elder's words were like a fuse that had been lit. Soon, someone else shouted. That's right, second consecrator, the city gate has been blocked. Let's retreat to the Martial Soul Mountain. We can still defend there. I remember there's still a formation there. As long as we retreat, we can hold on for a while longer. Everyone chimed in. Originally, the second consecrator was prepared to hold on. They still had soul stones on them. If they absorbed and resisted, they could at least hold on for a minute. However, what they said was too reasonable, and the second consecrator's heart wavered. He directly shouted, "Everyone, prepare to retreat." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's soul power instantly gathered together and exploded in all directions. The power of this explosion was extremely strong. Even Golden Hoop Doluo and the rest did not dare to take it head-on. They could only retreat. However, at this moment, Lin Feng made his move. It was his original body. He directly teleported down and arrived above the second consecrator and the rest. He held a carved staff in his hand and swung it down without hesitation. Originally, this carved staff was only 2 meters long, but with the infusion of his soul power, it directly became 10 meters long, covering all the soul masters below. Boom! Soul power exploded in the air. The power passed through the air and directly transmitted to the group of people. They could not dodge at all. They were easily hit and vomited blood. What a joke! Lin Feng took advantage of this group of people's soul power to attack when they had just finished erupting. In addition, it was a sneak attack. It would be strange if there were no result. Then, without giving this group of people any time to react, Lin Feng's 1,000 trickery ruler appeared and turned into thin threads that covered the sky, attaching themselves to this group of people. Paralyzing poison and life extraction were activated. Soon, this group of people was knocked out by Lin Feng and fell to the ground. The things that Mr. Destroy gave me are actually so useful. They were knocked out in an instant. Lin Feng smiled. He deliberately said this to explain why he was so strong. As for exposing himself, that did not exist. In everyone's minds, the Marvel family was almost omnipotent. No matter how ridiculous something was, as long as it was said that it was Thanos who did it, they would believe it. Feng Gu, you were too fierce just now. You blew up a group of people with a single staff. Xiao Wu ran over with a look of admiration. Just that attack just now had some of Mr. Destroy's style. It was a pity that Ning Rongrong, Dai Mubai, and the others didn't come over except for her and Tang San. They stayed back in the Soul Master Alliance. Otherwise, based on the situation just now, Ning Rongrong would probably shout excitedly. After all, he was too handsome. It's all thanks to Mr. Destroy's things. Lin Feng smiled. The others were not so close to Lin Feng. At this time, they were just looking at him in shock from afar. Seeing this, Lin Feng said, "Capture these people. From now on, they will be the Soul Master Alliance's training partners." Yes. Everyone answered in unison. Previously, in everyone's eyes, Lin Feng had a special status in the alliance. The main reason was that he had Thanos behind him. Also, the alliance master, Tang San, was his younger brother. Because of these reasons, Lin Feng had such a high status. However, in terms of strength, he should not be strong. But right now, Lin Feng had knocked 10 titled Dolua unconscious with a single strike. Furthermore, the timing and courage that he had displayed in his attack had convinced them. And now that they thought about it, they did not seem to have sensed Lin Feng's soul power fluctuations. Was it covered up by the previous impact? Or was it because he was so strong that they could not sense it at all? No matter what, Lin Feng's strength was already very strong. He was worthy of his current status. On Lin Feng's side, only a small part of his attention was on the ground. Most of his attention was still on the 1,000 Dao flow in the sky. His avatar was very close to that side. He could only wait for a good opportunity to attack and cooperate with Tang Chen and the others to injure or even kill the 1,000 Dao flow. The 1,000 Dao flow would not become a god, so in Lin Feng's heart, it was not very important. If he could capture them alive, he would capture them alive. It did not matter if he killed them. Chapter 524. Now, Bibi Dong had been captured, and so had the worshippers and elders of the Martial Spirit City. The Martial Spirit Hall was definitely going to be destroyed today. When Thousand Daos Lu discovered the abnormality, he was shocked and wanted to retreat. Scram! With a roar, the angelic sword in Thousand Daos Lu's hand shone with dazzling light. The 6 wings on his back flapped, and a pillar of light shot into the sky with unparalleled power. It pushed Tang San and Tang Chen away. Following that, Thousand Daos Lu flapped his wings and flew towards the Martial Spirit Mountain. On the other hand, the Martial Spirit Mountain shone brightly, as if it was resonating with Thousand Daos Lu. Clearly, Thousand Daos Lu had already made preparations on the Martial Spirit Mountain. Otherwise, he wouldn't have escaped in that direction. However, Lin Feng had been observing him the entire time, waiting for him to escape. At this moment, Thousand Daos Lu had just used a large-scale soul skill, so his soul power was sluggish. Lin Feng's attack was just right. Furthermore, his timing was extremely accurate. Just as Thousand Daos Lu flew a distance away and heaved a sigh of relief, Lin Feng merged with his body and teleported in front of Thousand Daos Lu. In his hand, he smashed down with the long staff that exuded an unparalleled aura. Oh no! Thousand Daos Lu's eyes almost popped out of their socket. The 6 wings on his back immediately wrapped around him, and he shone with golden light. At this moment it was too late for him to dodge. He could only use all his strength to block this attack. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lin Feng's staff hit Thousand Daos Lu's wings. The golden light on the wings formed a protective barrier, and Lin Feng felt a great resistance from it. Unfortunately, Thousand Daos Lu was in a hurry to block it, and he didn't have time to use much of his soul power. Although the golden light was tenacious, it was still lacking in front of Lin Feng's staff. Break! Lin Feng's soul power suddenly increased, and he used all the soul skills in the 1,000 Trickery Ruler. All kinds of characteristics were added to the staff. In an instant, the golden light was extinguished, and the 6 wings on Thousand Daos Lu's back were broken. Following that, the staff continued to swing down and smashed into Thousand Daos Lu's chest. Pooh! Qian Daolu spat out a mouthful of blood and fell from the sky. He smashed through the house below and landed on the ground. Before he could recover, Lin Feng had already landed beside him. The 1,000 manipulation ruler in his hand turned into a fine net and tied him up. The toxins accumulated in the thousands of streams of fluid, and his life force was constantly being sucked away. Soon, he followed in Bibi Dong's footsteps and fainted. First, he had been ambushed by Lin Feng and was heavily injured by a single strike of his staff. Now, He had been poisoned and his life force was constantly being sucked away. Thousand Streams was already on the verge of death. In order to prevent him from dying, Lin Feng immediately stopped extracting life force. At the same time, he also sent some life force to him. After a few seconds, Thousand Dao Lu's life was finally saved. Although the Thousand Stream was not as important to Lin Feng as it was to Bai Dong, it was still worth a few billion experience points. It would be best if he didn't die. That's right, Qian Renxue would be able to inherit the angel deity position when the time came. This old thing was still somewhat useful. After harvesting the Thousand Streams wool, he would be able to harvest Qian Renxue. Thinking about this, Lin Feng's mood improved a little. Elder Mia captured Bibi Dong and Thousand Streams alive. This battle is the first merit. Congratulations to Elder Mia. Congratulations to the Alliance. After seeing Lin Feng capture Thousand Streams alive, Golden Hoop Doluo and Hong Yifeng shouted excitedly. Their voices resounded throughout the entire martial spirit city. Congratulations to Elder Mia. Congratulations to the Alliance. Congratulations to Elder Mia. Congratulations to the Alliance. Congratulations to Elder Mia. Congratulations to the Alliance. Everyone responded one after another, letting out excited shouts. The one that was destroyed was the Martial Spirit Hall. It used to be the #1 faction in the world. Even the two empires were afraid of it. But now it was destroyed by the Soul Master Alliance. Furthermore, there were no casualties. They were destroyed without any injuries. Most importantly, the results of the battle were extremely good. The elders and consecrators of the Martial Spirit Hall, including the head consecrator, Thousand Streams, and Pope Bibi Dong, were all captured alive. Even a god might not be able to complete such a task. After all, there were too many people. If they really wanted to escape, they would have to scatter and it would be difficult to capture all of them. But now, with the help of everyone, Thanos did it. This kind of thing was too shocking. Everyone looked at Thanos with eyes full of worship and admiration. At this moment, the few titled Doluo who were blocking the entrance were escorting the escaping Soul Masters towards the center of Martial Spirit City. Thanos also waved his hand. Bibi Dong, who was imprisoned in the air, slowly landed in front of him. At this moment, Thanos held Bibi Dong in his right hand and Thousand Streams in his left. Although he didn't say a word and there were no soul power fluctuations on his body, his power made everyone in awe. Soon, Thanos said with a smile, "Today, the destruction of the Martial Spirit Hall is the blessing of the Alliance and the continent. Next, we can't be arrogant. We must continue to unify the continent, let the glory of the Alliance spread across the continent, and let the glory of the Alliance benefit all people." As soon as he finished speaking, the system prompt sounded. Ding! After an intense battle, the host captured a group of powerhouses of the Martial Spirit Hall alive. Combat experience has increased. Experience points plus 13286248815. A battle involving all the powerhouses of the Martial Spirit Hall. Although it was very short, the process was very thrilling. Originally, Lin Feng's psychological expectation was 1 billion experience points. He didn't expect to get an extra 300 million experience points in the end, which was quite surprising. Congratulations to the Alliance! Everyone shouted excitedly, venting the excitement in their hearts. After everyone's mood calmed down a little, Slayer Overlord said, "Sect Master Ning, you organize it and take care of the Martial Spirit Palace's consecrators and elders. Alliance Master Tang, take some people to the Martial Spirit Palace's warehouse and loot it. Also." After a brief arrangement, everyone dispersed and went to do their own things. Thanos himself was responsible for looking after Qian Lu and Bibi Dong. They were at the peak of rank 99 Doluo and had taken the divine examination. Bibi Dong, especially, was not far from becoming a god. Against such a powerful soul master, Lin Feng had to use several layers of soul power to seal him. Furthermore, he had to use his unique thousand trickery ruler to restrain him. This method of trapping people was to integrate the thousand trickery ruler into their bodies and directly cut off their soul power supply. In this way, as long as they made any strange movements, Lin Feng could stop them from the root. Of course, this kind of thing required extremely powerful soul power control and some time. So, Lin Feng directly took the two of them into a house next to him. Next, he used the thousand trickery ruler to slowly control the two of them. At the same time, Ning Fengji organized the elders to set up defenses in the surroundings and arrange for the captives of the martial spirit hall. Tang San took Xiao Wu and Lin Feng's clone to the warehouse of the martial spirit hall to plunder things. There were also a few titled Dolua at the city gate. It would not be long before they could escort the soul masters to the martial spirit mountain. By the way, Tang Chen was already very respectful to Thanos Lord at this time. In his heart, Thanos Overlord had already been equated with a god. It couldn't be helped. Thanos was too strong. He easily beat Tang Chen. Now, it only took him a few minutes to capture Bibi Dong and Qian Daolu. He did not even dare to think about such a result. He had to be convinced. In the warehouse of the martial spirit hall, Xiao Wu said with a smile, "Third brother, look, there are so many soul bones here. Although they're not very old, they can still be absorbed." Soul bones were different from soul rings. Their age did not affect one's strength as much as soul rings, but it still affected one's strength. However, these effects could be eliminated as time passed. That was why Xiao Wu recommended Tang San to absorb them now. Lin Feng nodded and said, "Xiao San, you can absorb these too. However, there are no torso bones here. You'll have to find one when the time comes." "Okay." Tang San nodded in response. Wow, there are so many soul stones and materials. The warehouse of the Martial Spirit Hall is almost comparable to the Soul Master Alliances. Xiao Wu was very happy. The warehouse of the Soul Master Alliance was mainly managed by Flanders. Xiao Wu had also become a deputy manager over the past month, so she was also in charge of this. The number of materials is about the same, but the quality is much better than ours. Furthermore, there are soul bones here, which we don't have. Tang San smiled. Soul bones were very precious. Basically, no one would exchange them for contribution points. In terms of materials, most of them were ordinary materials. There were very few precious ones, and even fewer people were willing to exchange them for them. The warehouse of the Martial Spirit Hall was the accumulation of the Martial Spirit Hall over many years. Originally, Bibi Dong wanted to move them away early. However, the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Hall were in Martial Spirit City. She was afraid that they would be stolen if they went to the Star Luo Empire. In the end, Bibi Dong did not ask anyone to move them away. She left them in the city. She thought that as long as she could win, no one would be able to take everything away from her. In the end, Bibi Dong lost, and everything became Lin Feng's spoils of war. As they talked, Tang San and Xiao Wu quickly put the items into their soul tools. When the time came, they would bring them back to Heaven Do City, where the headquarters of the Soul Master Alliance was located. At this moment, Lin Feng suddenly said, "Xiao San, Martial Spirit City's location is a little special. It's between two empires. Let's make it the headquarters of the Soul Master Alliance in the future. When the time comes, we'll unify the continent. With this place as the center, it'll be more convenient for both sides." Martial Spirit City. Due to its special location, there were no other cities within a few hundred miles of it. Although it was a little desolate, its strategic location was very good. There was no need to worry about being attacked or ambushed by conventional armies. In Lin Feng's opinion, when Martial Spirit City became the center of the continent, it would definitely expand to its surroundings. It would also be turned into the economic and cultural center of the world. This way they would have more influence. What a good idea! In that case, we won't need to take these materials. In the future, this place will be the main warehouse of the Soul Master Alliance. At this moment, Tang San said, Feng Go, the Soul Master Alliance's influence on the continent is not big enough. If we move the headquarters too early, the Snowy Night Emperor might do something. Currently, the Snowy Night Emperor was sullen and didn't dare to do anything. Although the main reason was that the Soul Master Alliance was too strong, the large number of experts around the palace was also a big reason. With so many experts who could rush to your face and beat you up, it would be strange if you weren't afraid. Don't worry. So what if they do something? No matter how many ants there are, do you think they can bite an elephant to death? It wasn't that Lin Feng was bragging. The Heaven Do Empire's strength was only SOSO. Even if there were any movements, he could easily suppress them. That makes sense. When are we moving here? Tang San asked. There's no time to lose. Today, I'll send someone to inform the entire continent that the Soul Master Alliance will unify the continent and move the headquarters to Martial Spirit City. Before attacking the Martial Spirit Hall, Lin Feng had already made preparations. Everything was under his control. Thinking of this, Lin Feng waved his hand and took out a list of plans. Then, he handed it to Tang San. Xiao San, there are detailed plans on this list. Take a good look. I'll leave this matter to you. I still have to make a trip to the Star Luo Empire. Lin Feng had previously agreed with Dai Mubai that after taking down the Martial Spirit Hall, he would go to the Star Luo Empire to change the regime. Okay. Tang San took it and nodded. Seeing this, Lin Feng nodded. Familiarize yourself with Martial Spirit City with Xiao Wu first. I'll take my leave first. With that, Lin Feng didn't stay in the warehouse for long and quickly left. The Star Luo Empire was different from the Heaven Do Empire. It was the headquarters of the Martial Spirit Hall and was formed by many forces. Now that the Martial Spirit Hall was destroyed, there was likely to be chaos there. Lin Feng still needed a lot of time to completely take over the Star Luo Empire. Of course, this was only a waste of time. It wasn't a difficult task. The most important thing now was to unify the continent in name. When that time came, Lin Feng would publicize his situation, and his reputation would soar to the sky. With that thought, Lin Feng went outside and roughly told Ning Fengji what he had said to Tang San. Ning Fengji was a man of action, and he did things with ease. Previously, Lin Feng had asked him to do the publicity. Now that he was asked to publicize again, the news of the Soul Master Alliance destroying the Martial Spirit Hall and unifying the entire continent would spread in a few days. After explaining things, Lin Feng went to find Dai Mubai and discussed with him what to do after going to the Star Luo Empire. Soon, 10 minutes had passed. Thanos had already put shackles on Thousand Streams and Bibi Dong. He didn't have to worry about them suddenly going berserk and hurting people. If they wanted to use their soul power, Lin Feng would set up shackles to restrict them. At the same time, he would punish them by injuring them. Of course, Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry to wake them up. It would be better if they were unconscious. At least, there wouldn't be any accidents. At the same time, the several titled battle pet warriors who had stopped people at the city gate arrived at the foot of the Martial Soul Mountain with several hundred people. Bibi Dong's disciple, Hu Liena, was among them. Chapter 525. The war to destroy the Martial Spirit Hall was carried out very quickly. Apart from many houses in the city center that were destroyed, the other places were relatively intact. Under Ning Fengji's lead, the messy houses were quickly cleaned up, and the Soul Masters of the Martial Spirit Hall were also escorted to the nearby housing area. Hu Liena was also among these people. After being captured, she had thought of resisting. However, their opponent was Doluo, a titled Soul Master who was extremely strong. Attacking such a strong master was tantamount to an ant trying to shake a tree. they would only be courting death. More importantly, Doloa said that these titled soul masters wouldn't be killed as long as they stayed put. No one would risk their lives. Even the Pope, Bibi Dong, and the great consecrator had been captured. Everyone had no target to resist, and they were a little discouraged. In fact, Lin Feng's decision to capture Bibi Dong and the others alive was very correct. This not only dealt a blow to their mentality, but also didn't make them despair. Otherwise, if the people of the Martial Spirit Hall were really destroyed, they might fight to the death. But now, everyone knew that Bibi Dong and the others were still alive, and the Soul Master Alliance didn't intend to kill anyone. This was something to look forward to. When Ning Fengji publicized the situation in the Martial Spirit City on the continent, the Star Luo Empire might not resist too much. Of course, all of this was just a guess. The specific situation would depend on the follow-up. Thinking of this, Lin Feng and Thanos walked out of the room. This room was now the focus of everyone's attention. After all, Bibi Dong and Doloa, the two peak masters of the Thousand Daos sect, were inside. When the two of them came out, everyone looked at them. Thanos looked at Tang Qin and said, "Now, Bibi Dong and Thousand Daos sect's soul power has been sealed by me in a special way. Their strength is greatly restricted. However, they are Doloa, who is at the peak of rank 99. Maybe they have some special means. Tang Qin, guard the two of them." Yes. Tang Qin was in awe of Thanos at this time and immediately nodded. After saying that, he quickly stood at the door and became a door god. At this moment, Lin Feng said to Golden Hoop Doloa, "Elder Hong, take 3 people and guard the surroundings to prevent any accidents from happening." Although the possibility of an accident was very small, or even non-existent, Lin Feng still had to do what he had to do. After giving his instructions, Lin Feng did not rush to find Dai Mubai. Instead, he walked towards the eastern housing area. That was where the Soul Master Alliance was keeping their captive. There were more than 300 people there, and most of them were soul sages. There were also quite a few soul Doloa. When Lin Feng walked over, he didn't try to hide anything. Instead, he walked openly. After all, it wasn't something shameful. Soon, Lin Feng, accompanied by Thanos, arrived at the housing area. "Greetings, Elder Mia, Elder Lin." One of the titled Doloa standing guard greeted them respectfully as soon as he arrived. Lin Feng had displayed fighting strength at the level of a titled Dolu. Therefore, he was directly promoted to an Elder of the Soul Master Alliance. In addition to his identity, even a titled Doloa was very respectful to him. "Let's go in and take a look." Lin Feng nodded and quickly walked towards the housing area. Although it was said to be a housing area, it was actually a large square. More than 300 people were in this square, and no one was in their rooms. After all, the rooms were blind spots, and it was much more difficult to guard them. The square was very noisy, and people were discussing everywhere. Some were talking about the situation of the Soul Master Alliance, some were talking about their own future, and some were even plotting how to save Bibi Dong, Qian Daolu, and the others. However, all these discussions disappeared when Lin Feng and Thanos arrived at the front of the square. Everyone turned their eyes and looked at Thanos Overlord with awe. For the strong, the people on the Doloa continent admired them very much, especially Thanos Ba, who could defeat the entire continent. They admired him very much. Now, Thanos's iconic white robe and white mask appeared in front of them. Everyone was in awe of him from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of awe didn't contain any hostile thoughts. It was just respect for powerful people. However, everyone's expressions soon darkened. This was because they realized that they were all prisoners of the Soul Master Alliance, and a powerful person like Thanos was on the opposite side of them. Thanos didn't walk forward. Instead, he stopped at the edge of the square and waited quietly. Lin Feng continued to walk into the square. His goal was very clear, and he walked to the left. Everyone was intimidated by Thanos, and no one dared to do anything. They didn't even dare to breathe heavily. When Lin Feng came to their side, they all retreated and opened a path for him. Lin Feng's target was Hu Laina. At this moment, she was at the back of the crowd. She didn't have any impression of Lin Feng's appearance. It was very vague, and she didn't know who was walking towards them. However, she didn't know why, but at this moment, she had a premonition that Lin Feng was coming for her. As Lin Feng got closer and closer, Hu Laina's premonition became clearer and clearer. Slowly, the people in front of her all retreated, and even the people around her dispersed. At the same time, Lin Feng stopped and looked at Hu Laina quietly. At this moment, Hu Laina's heart was in a mess, and she thought a lot. Who is this person in front of me? Why is he looking for me? Is it Yong-en? It feels so familiar. His figure is similar, but why is his appearance different? Also, the reason why Hu Laina had the courage to stand there and not move was because of her previous guess and the premonition in her heart. However, with Lin Feng's calm gaze and a glance, this courage was rapidly fading. It was clearly less than a second, but Hu Laina began to doubt herself. Am I wrong? He's not Yong-en? Is he really not? Then am I standing here blocking the way? I'd better get out of the way quickly. Otherwise, if I angered the big shot, I'll have to suffer. Thinking of this, Hu Laina was slightly embarrassed and retreated. However, at this moment, Lin Feng suddenly grabbed her wrist. Hu Laina's body trembled. What a fast speed! She didn't even have time to react before her hand was grabbed. Lin Feng looked at Hu Laina and said with a smile, "When we parted in Massacre City, you wanted me to come and find you. See, I'm here today." At this moment, Hu Laina was wearing the same one that Lin Feng had made with the 1000-ji ruler, which made Lin Feng's smile even wider. Yong-en? Hu Laina's voice trembled slightly. In just a few seconds, Hu Laina's emotions had risen and fallen to the extreme. At first, she was filled with anticipation, thinking that the person who had come was Yong-en, who had saved her life in Massacre City. However, as time passed, her guesses quickly fell apart, and she was filled with worry. However, very quickly, when her mood was about to hit rock bottom, Lin Feng pulled her up and flew straight into the clouds. At this moment, Hu Laina was extremely excited, and she was a bit dazed, not knowing what to say. "That's right, it's me." Lin Feng smiled, and his entire person was filled with friendliness, which made Hu Laina, who was originally a bit flustered, quickly calm down. Lin Feng didn't want to talk to Hu Laina in this big square. In the next second, he reached out and pulled Hu Laina into his arms. Then, the tip of their feet lightly touched the ground, and the two flew out of the square, landing in front of a large hall outside. In a flash, Lin Feng hugged Hu Laina and spun around, flying into the large hall. At this moment, Hu Laina felt like she was in a dream. In the large hall, Lin Feng didn't immediately let go of Hu Laina. Instead, he continued to hug her and sat down on a large chair. All these years, Lin Feng had almost never been close to women. The main reason was that there were very few that caught his eye, and at the same time, he wanted to pursue strength, so he didn't really care about these things. But now, his strength could be considered the #1 person in the continent, and he had reached a limit, so he could indulge himself a little. As for Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing, because they were too close, he didn't have the nerve to hug them directly. Especially when the two of them were often together, if Lin Feng was nice to one of them, the other would be jealous. So until now, Lin Feng had always kept a distance from the two of them. Chapter 526. Martial Spirit Hall? Lin Feng's question was so sudden that Hu Laina was taken aback. But soon, she nodded immediately. Of course. The elders in Martial Spirit Hall are very good to me. Master is also very good to me. I was adopted by Martial Spirit Hall since I was young. Martial Spirit Hall is like my home. Hu Laina and her brother were both orphans. In their hearts, Master Bibi Dong was their mother. Martial Spirit Hall was equivalent to their own home. And their own home, no matter what it looked like, was excellent in their hearts. This idea is very good. Lin Feng nodded to show his approval. Then he continued, if I were you, I would think so too. However, I will distinguish right from wrong. If Martial Spirit Hall is good, of course I will always support it. But if they want to do something inhumane, I will oppose it. Inhumane? Hulaina immediately retorted. Martial Spirit Hall has never done such a thing. Don't be affected by the rumors of outsiders. Lin Feng had expected Hulaina's reaction. He could see that Hulaina was the kind of person who didn't know much about Martial Spirit Hall. After all, her strength was too weak. She hadn't even reached the level of Soul Doluo. Even if she was Bibi Dong's apprentice, she wouldn't know the core plan of Martial Spirit Hall. So she only had a beautiful fantasy about the situation of Martial Spirit Hall. Then tell me, what good things has Martial Spirit Hall done? Lin Feng asked with interest. That's a lot. Hulaina said, Martial Spirit Hall has set up Martial Spirit branch halls in all the cities of the two empires. They also help low-level soul masters by giving them gold coins as subsidies. Also, Soul Master Academy is open. Soul Masters can come and study for free. And those Soul Masters who join Martial Spirit Hall, their cultivation speed has been greatly improved, and their final achievements are not low. After saying this, Hulaina stopped and looked at Lin Feng, as if waiting for Lin Feng to speak. However, Lin Feng just smiled and continued to ask, and? Hulaina was taken aback, and after muttering for a few seconds, Hulaina couldn't think of anything else to say. At this moment, she was also very confused. Because in Hulaina's heart, the Martial Spirit Palace was very good, but at this time, she couldn't tell how good it was, which was very ridiculous. I don't think so. Lin Feng continued. And have you realized that the so-called good of the Martial Spirit Hall is only good for themselves? Their purpose is to attract soul masters to join the Martial Spirit Hall. Other than that, they don't treat ordinary people or other soul masters well. Think about it, isn't giving out gold coins to impress the soul masters? Were soul master academies opened to attract soul masters to join the Martial Soul Hall? What's more, soul masters will become stronger after joining the Martial Spirit Hall, but in the end, won't the Martial Spirit Hall be the strongest? So in the end, what you said about Martial Spirit Palace is good is not much for others. Hearing these words, Hulaina felt a bit dumbfounded. Obviously, it was Martial Spirit Palace that had done these good deeds. Why was it that in Lin Feng's eyes, it was all for his own good? Hulaina wanted to refute, but after thinking about it carefully, Lin Feng seemed to be right. For ordinary people, Martial Spirit Palace really didn't do anything good. Everything was for the sake of Martial Spirit Palace itself. Just as she was thinking about this, Lin Feng spoke again, and let me tell you the truth, your master Bibi Dong is very ambitious. Her idea is to establish a Martial Spirit Empire and then unify the continent. And her method of unifying is bloody suppression, slaughtering all the opposing Soul Master forces. If the two empires oppose, Bibi Dong will also launch a war against them, and countless people will be killed and injured because of this. But in Bibi Dong's eyes, these casualties are just a number, she doesn't care at all. According to Lin Feng's understanding of Bibi Dong, she was such a person. She was very ambitious and also very cold. And when Hulaina heard these words, her face was full of disbelief. Because the person Lin Feng said was completely different from the Bibi Dong in her impression. In Hulaina's opinion, although Bibi Dong was strict, she still liked her very much. There were many soul masters in Martial Spirit Palace who supported her, and she also had a good reputation on the continent. Thinking about this, Hulaina immediately said, "Impossible. My master can't be such a person." "Why is it impossible?" Lin Feng asked calmly. If Bibi Dong had a little sense of responsibility, she would have brought people to Heaven Do City to save people. In the Soul Master Alliance's prison, there are still people from Martial Spirit Palace locked up in the Martial Spirit Palace. But in the end, did you see Bibi Dong go to save people? I'm afraid she didn't even ask around, and just treated them as if they were all dead. When Lin Feng said this, Hulaina was immediately speechless. Lin Feng was right. Although they knew that those people were in Heaven Do City and were still alive, Bibi Dong never intended to rescue them. However, Bibi Dong didn't even think about rescuing them from the start to the end. He even found many excuses to avoid this matter, saying that it was a trap set by the Soul Master Alliance. Because of the tense atmosphere at that time, no one suspected anything. But now, according to Lin Feng's words, it seemed that Bibi Dong really didn't care about those people. Also, to be honest, in the eyes of Soul Masters, the lives of ordinary people were inferior. Soul Masters were high and mighty, and should be of a higher level than ordinary people without soul power. This was the uniform view of the entire continent. Of course, there were different degrees of this view. Some Soul Masters treated ordinary people the same way as other Soul Masters, and some Soul Masters didn't care about ordinary people at all. Clearly, Bibi Dong was the latter. Because of Qian Xuanji, Bibi Dong's mentality was a little twisted, and she wanted to unify the continent to prove herself. In fact, Bibi Dong was also a pitiful person. If Qian Xuanji hadn't done such a thing to her, with Bibi Dong's talent, she could have led Martial Spirit Palace to new heights. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Things had already come to this, and it was useless to think about it. The most important thing was to correct Hulaina's thoughts. How is it? I'm right? Seeing that Hulaina didn't speak, Lin Feng asked with a smile. Hulaina nodded. You're right, but, before she could finish, Lin Feng continued, I know what you want to say. You don't think your master is that kind of person. She wouldn't do such a thing. I know you won't believe me, so I have evidence here. With that, Lin Feng waved his hand, and a pile of secret letters appeared in his hand. These are the messages that the Martial Spirit Palace sent to each other. Some are from elders, some are from consecrators, and some are from Bibi Dong himself. These are all the letters that Heaven Do City received in the past few years. You can see for yourself what the Martial Spirit Palace's goal is. After intercepting the channels of the Martial Spirit Palace's spies, Lin Feng let Dugu Bo operate and collect information on the Martial Spirit Palace. At that time, he didn't think too much about it. He just wanted to know the situation of the Martial Spirit Palace. After all, knowing oneself and knowing one's enemy was a sure way to victory. Although Lin Feng was confident that he would destroy the Martial Spirit Palace in the future, it was always good to know more about them. He didn't expect that the information would be used for another purpose today. At this moment, Hulaina left Lin Feng's arms and quickly flipped through the messages. In the beginning, Hulaina thought that the Martial Spirit Palace couldn't do these things. It must be false information that Lin Feng heard. However, as she read more and more letters, she became more and more clear about the Martial Spirit Palace's plan. Moreover, these letters were all real. They were all engraved with the unique mark of the Martial Spirit Palace. It couldn't be faked. However, Hulaina didn't know anything about this. Colluding with nobles, roping in Soul Master forces, and so on. She had never heard of these big moves of the Martial Spirit Palace. At this moment, Hulaina realized that the Martial Spirit Palace in her mind was very different from the real Martial Spirit Palace. After a few minutes, Hulaina put down the letters in her hand in a daze. She was really shocked. She didn't know what to say at this moment. Seeing this, Lin Feng waved his hand and kept everything. At the same time, he pulled Hulaina into his arms. Don't worry about the Soul Master Alliance. The Martial Spirit Palace is now a thing of the past. The past will be written off. The Soul Master Alliance will unify the continent. Lin Feng's gentle voice echoed in Hulaina's ears. Her anxious heart calmed down. Just now, she was really worried that the Soul Master Alliance would pursue the matter. After all, the Martial Spirit Palace had done many things in secret that were detrimental to the Soul Master Alliance. In fact, until now, Hulaina didn't know what Lin Feng's position in the Soul Master Alliance was. She didn't know if he had the right to make decisions. However, as long as Lin Feng spoke, she trusted him completely. At this moment, Lin Feng continued, "The most important thing is that the shortcomings of the Martial Spirit Palace that I mentioned before don't exist in our Soul Master Alliance. Our Soul Master Alliance advocates equality for everyone. Although there is no way to strictly implement this at the moment, as time passes, this idea will spread to everyone's hearts. At that time, the entire continent will become different. Also, the goal of the Soul Master Alliance is to innovate life, change all aspects of Soul Masters and ordinary people, and even promote the development of the entire continent. It's not just for ourselves. Although the Martial Spirit City has been sealed during this period of time, I'm sure you know some information about the continent. Especially those new Soul Tool technologies, they were all invented by the Soul Master Alliance." Hulaina was aware of what Lin Feng said. Not only her, but almost all the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Palace knew. After all, they could get a lot of information from the Star Luo Empire. If Bibi Dong hadn't released the news that he was about to become a god, many people in the Martial Spirit City would have left for various reasons. The Soul Master Alliance. Seeing that Hulaina listened to his words, Lin Feng was very gratified and immediately continued to talk about the Soul Master Alliance. In fact, Lin Feng was most afraid that Hulaina wouldn't listen to him. If that was the case, it would be very difficult for him to change her. The current situation was very good, at least it made Lin Feng feel very comfortable. Since establishing the Soul Master Alliance, Lin Feng's target was the ordinary people of the entire continent. After all, a deity position required a lot of faith power, and the number of ordinary people was much higher than Soul Masters, so of course, the propaganda had to be based on ordinary people. Furthermore, these ideas and methods wouldn't have much of an impact on Soul Masters. It was equivalent to a win-win situation for both sides. Although these had a lot of conflicts with the Martial Spirit Palace, now that the Martial Spirit Palace had been destroyed, the conflicts naturally disappeared. Strictly speaking, the Soul Master Alliance only had conflicts with Bibi Dong. After all, most people in the Martial Spirit Palace didn't have the ambition to dominate the continent. Half an hour later, Lin Feng and Hulaina walked out of the room. After a conversation, Lin Feng had already calmed down Hulaina's emotions. At the same time, he told her about the general situation of the Soul Master Alliance, so that she had a normal understanding of the Soul Master Alliance. After all, her previous understanding of the Soul Master Alliance was through many twists and turns, and she could even distort some things more than Bibi Dong. Under such circumstances, the information Hulaina received wasn't accurate. Now that she heard Lin Feng's explanation, her understanding of the Soul Master Alliance deepened. After the two of them came out, Lin Feng went straight to Ningfengji. Hulaina requested to meet with Bibi Dong, so Lin Feng specially brought Hulaina over and let her into the room. After that, Lin Feng didn't delay any longer. After saying a few words to Ningfengji, he directly left. Dai Mubai didn't follow him to Martial Spirit City, so Lin Feng had to go back to find him and officially announce the migration. This time, of course, Slayer Overlord also followed. Actually, after the previous battle, Ningfengji and the others had already called Heaven Do City and explained the situation. However, a call was ultimately a call, and it was far less grand than a live announcement. When Lin Feng and Thanos arrived at Heaven Do City, the entire city cheered. There was no other reason, but the Soul Master Alliance was too popular. This was the headquarters of the Soul Master Alliance, and the place where the benefits of the Alliance were the strongest. This kind of welcoming scene was within Lin Feng's expectations. When he arrived at the Alliance's headquarters, the celebratory atmosphere was even better. After all, everyone knew the goal of the Soul Master Alliance, which was to destroy the Martial Spirit Hall and unify the continent. Now that the Martial Spirit Hall was destroyed, the next goal was to unify the continent. This was because the people of the Soul Master Alliance were incomparably excited. When they saw Lin Feng, they all cheered. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he came to the plaza and announced loudly to everyone, "Today, the Soul Master Alliance destroyed Martial Spirit City. In a few days, we will unify the continent." Lin Feng's voice resounded throughout the plaza, causing countless people to go crazy and shout, "Unify the continent." At this moment, Ning Rongrong, Dai Mubai, and the others had already arrived at the edge of the plaza. When they saw this scene, they were also excited and shouted. Next, under everyone's anticipation, Lin Feng briefly announced the future plan, causing everyone to be filled with anticipation. After more than 10 minutes, Lin Feng dismissed the excited crowd and walked towards Dai Mubai and the others. After half a minute, he arrived in front of Thanos. There were already many people around them. They were all curious about what Shui Yi wanted to do. Ning Rongrong was also confused. "Feng Go, what are you doing? Why is His Majesty walking towards Mr. Destroy?" "He wants to surrender," Lin Feng said calmly. "Surrender? Really?" Everyone was confused. They didn't know why. As if to answer their doubts, Shui Yi spoke. He raised the Empire's seal and scepter high. "I, Shui Yi, Emperor of the Heaven Do Empire, I surrender to the Soul Master Alliance. I hope to bring peace to the continent and—" His voice wasn't soft. Everyone in the square heard him. Some were surprised, some expressed understanding, and some expressed pity. "Feng Gu, why is His Majesty surrendering all of a sudden?" Ma Hongjun asked. "We destroyed the Soul Master Alliance in less than half a day. Do you think he's afraid of becoming the next Martial Spirit Palace?" Lin Feng said calmly. The Martial Spirit Palace was the most powerful force on the continent. They had more than 10 titled Dolu. They also had 1,000 Daos Lu and Bibi Dong, 2 super strong people. Such a force couldn't even last half a day in front of the Soul Master Alliance. This meant that the Soul Master Alliance could easily destroy any force on the continent of Dolu. Because of this, Shui Yi knew what would happen to him in the future. To prevent something bad from happening, surrendering now was more dignified. At least it would leave an impression of him as someone who loved his people. After all, Shui Yi surrendered to avoid a war. If this wasn't him cherishing his soldiers' lives, what was it? So that's how it is. Ma Hongjun was enlightened. At this time, the Snow Knight Emperor also finished his words of surrender. For a time, everyone in the square held their breath, waiting for Thanos to speak. Especially Shui Yi. Took a lot of courage for him to say these words. After all, as a ruler, it was too embarrassing for him to surrender to a force from his own empire in front of everyone. Shui Yi was very nervous now. He was waiting for Thanos' reaction. After about 3 seconds of silence, Thanos finally spoke. "The Soul Master Alliance accepts your surrender." The moment he said that, the members of the Soul Master Alliance in the square burst into cheers. They were all from the Heaven Do Empire. At the same time, they were also members of the Soul Master Alliance. If the Soul Master Alliance was just an ordinary force, they wouldn't be so happy. In their hearts, being a citizen of the Heaven Do Empire was more important. However, this was the Soul Master Alliance. It was an extremely special force. As long as you joined, you would be able to experience the benefits. Furthermore, everyone in Heaven Do City could clearly feel the changes in the city. Before the Soul Master Alliance was formed, Heaven Do City was very prosperous. However, this prosperity felt very ordinary and normal. After the Soul Master Alliance was formed, the entire Heaven Do City changed. Not only were there many new things, but there was also a subtle change that made everyone feel more at ease. This change was a little unclear. However, as long as you experienced it yourself, you would realize that the difference between the two was too great. This was why everyone cheered when the Soul Master Alliance forced the Heaven Do Empire to surrender. After a few seconds of cheering, Thanos said, "From today onwards, the Heaven Do Empire will be reduced to the Heaven Do Kingdom. Military power will be handed over to the Soul Master Alliance. You will only have the Royal Guards." Soul Masters. Thanos recited the arrangements for the Heaven Do Empire for a full minute. Generally speaking, the Heaven Do Empire was weakened. Right now, the royal family's power was only a figurehead. The Soul Master Alliance would take over most of the Empire's power. Lin Feng had already thought of these words. Originally, he wanted to take over the Star Luo Empire before coming back to beat up Shui Yi. He didn't expect Shui Yi to surrender so quickly. In the end, Thanos spent about 5 minutes laying down many rules for Shui Yi. He told him to go back and take a good look. He would transfer power to Ning Fengji the next day. Shui Yi had also prepared many things in advance. Apart from the seal and scepter, there were also military documents, reports on the Empire's territories, and other things. After casually flipping through them, Thanos put them away. He wasn't very interested in these things. When the time came, he would just show them to Ning Fengji. Speaking of which, Ning Fengji was really a sucker. He saw that the Heaven Do Empire had spent a lot of money to raise the million-strong army. Most of the military expenses were deducted from the 7 treasures glazed sex taxes. It could be said that Ning Fengji was helping the Heaven Do Empire raise this army. On the other hand, the 7 treasures glazed sect was really profitable. The taxes they collected every year were enough to raise a million-strong army. It was no wonder they were the richest Soul Master organization on the continent. The Heaven Do Empire's surrender was only a small interlude to Lin Feng. Very soon, he spoke to Dai Mubai. "Mubai, now that Martial Soul City has been conquered and the Heaven Do Empire has surrendered, bring me to the Star Luo Empire's royal family." Dai Mubai nodded and said, "Yes. Let's go now. The Star Luo Empire is more martial than the Heaven Do Empire. As long as I announce the Soul Master Alliance's achievements, I don't think anyone will object." The Star Luo Empire loved to fight, and their army was very strong. If not for the Martial Soul Hall's interference, the Heaven Do Empire might have been destroyed by them. However, even though they were belligerent, they were not stupid. In the face of absolute strength, they would also submit. "Feng Go, I'll go with you," Zhu Zhuqing suddenly said. Seeing this, Ning Rongrong hurriedly said, "Feng Go, I want to go too." She didn't have to go. It was just that Zhu Zhuqing would be alone with Lin Feng, and she felt threatened. Lin Feng said helplessly, "Take Qi is useful in the Star Luo Empire. As for Rongrong, didn't I tell you earlier that your father will return to Heaven Do City tonight? You still have to help him move the alliance tomorrow." "Oh, then I won't go." Hearing this, Ning Rongrong nodded helplessly. Lin Feng looked at the Grandmaster and Oscar. "If the laboratory needs any support, just let us know. The Soul Master Alliance will fully support your research." The laboratory was able to come up with new soul tool technology and all kinds of new things. The main reason was because of the Grandmaster and Oscar's talent. However, there was a saying that a clever housewife couldn't cook without rice. Without the Soul Master Alliance's full support, they wouldn't have been able to achieve their current result. The two complemented each other. The Grandmaster and the Soul Master Alliance gained fame and technology, and the Soul Master Alliance also gained great influence. "We already have a lot of support. We don't need too much for now," the Grandmaster hurriedly said. Speaking of which, they hadn't come up with anything new for more than half a month. The Soul Master Alliance kept sending supplies to the laboratory, which made the Grandmaster and Oscar a little embarrassed. Don't worry about the materials. The Soul Master Alliance can easily provide them. After laughing, Lin Feng turned serious and said, Grandmaster, Little Ao, if the two of you are free, you can compile your own soul tool skills into teaching materials. That way, the two of you can teach even more students. Yes. Both of them nodded immediately. Creating teaching materials meant that they would be passed down through the ages. To the Grandmaster and Oscar, this was a great temptation. With Lin Feng's God creation plan, Oscar might be the person with the third most faith power after Lin Feng and himself. Alright, I've said what I needed to say. Mu Bai Take Chi, let's go. After that, under the leadership of Thanos, they quickly flew to the south. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.